It had been a tough week. I spent Sunday driving to my client's plant, then spent 3 grueling days fixing their network and database. By Thursday afternoon, I had everything up and running ahead of schedule. My client was thrilled, and I was looking forward to an early return to surprise my wife, Clara, for our 30th anniversary. She had been a bit unhappy about the long trips lately, but when a client's business is at stake, I had to prioritize the job. A bit of background. I own a small, successful computer consulting business, which I built from the ground up. Clara and I got married right after college. I'm not exactly handsome, but not unattractive either. I've always kept in decent shape, and Clara, though not a beauty queen, was very attractive to me. Even after having our 2 kids, she maintained a curvy figure. Clara worked a downtown office job, buying new clothes and a car every few years. While I could easily support us both, she enjoyed working. Our children, Nora and Ryan, grew up to be responsible adults, both happily married. Nora was living independently with her husband, and Ryan, married to his high school sweetheart, had 2 kids. I arrived home around 11 p.m. Thursday after a 10-hour drive. There was a strange car parked outside, but I didn't think much of it. I figured Clara's car was in the garage. I carried in a bouquet of 15 yellow roses, one for each year of our marriage, and quietly entered the house, hoping to surprise her. But instead of finding my wife, I heard them before I saw them. It was unmistakable. In shock, I retreated to my car and grabbed my digital camera. I didn't take the flowers or the card inside. They were taking a break when I returned. I overheard him asking, "So you're sure your little peckered hubby doesn't suspect anything?" She giggled and responded, "No, he has no clue. He won't be back until Saturday, and by then, everything will be perfect. He'll never find out." In that moment, the cliché became my reality. I know, but if he does find out, it could get ugly. He won't. He's too wrapped up in that stupid business. Now shut up. Where were we? Oh yeah. Well, there wasn't much video till then, but the audio would be clear. To get the video, I crept silently down the hall. The bedroom door was wide open and a bedside light was on. Video would be no problem. I stood in the doorway across the hall. It was dark in the room, but they would only have to look to see me. I didn't particularly care if they did. I'm sure that checking out the hallway wasn't on their radar. He was screwing into her and doing all the nasty talking. I got about 30 minutes of good video and audio. It was all making me sick. It took all I had not to upchuck all over the spare bedroom where I was crouched. I waited until they started up again for at least the 3rd time since I arrived and crept out of the house. With me, she wanted to quit as soon as one of us climaxed, no matter which one of us it was. With this guy, it seemed she couldn't get enough. At first I was upset, more than just upset, and then I got mad. Now I would get even. It would take some time. I could feel a cold rage building. It would serve to keep me on track with what I wanted to do. Inside, my heart was crying for the family I felt I had already lost. I found a cheap motel not too far from my business and tried to get some sleep. Instead, I tossed and turned all night, coming up with different scenarios. Physically, I had no plans to hurt them, much as I wanted to. Every other way I would if I could. I had his plate number. It would be easy to find out everything I needed to know about him. Clara was another matter. I had to make sure she had nothing left but maybe her RSPs that I had contributed to over the years. She had a job that didn't pay all that much, but it paid for her car and fancy toys with her salary. I paid for everything else from my stupid business that had put food on the table, a nice house to live in, and all the goodies and toys she just had to have that she couldn't afford on her salary. Well, tomorrow morning the gravy train would stop rolling and the meal ticket would get voided. I was up early. I made a couple of calls, the last being to my lawyer. "Ethan, I know you do corporate. Can you recommend a good divorce lawyer?" "Luke, are you and Clara having problems?" "Let's just say that she found a boyfriend to keep her company while I'm busy busting my butt with the business." "I'm really sorry to hear that, Luke. The best one I can think of is Maya Fields." "Like in the actress? Is she local?" "I doubt she's related to the actress, but she doesn't take prisoners if you know what I mean. Can I use you as a reference?" "Sure. Here's her number. If she's not in the office, it will forward to her cell." "Luke, I'm really sorry to hear this. I thought you two were the perfect couple." He gave me her number and a backroom number that bypassed the secretary. "Thanks, Ethan." "So did I. I'm sure I'll be talking to you soon. I'll be removing her as a director in the company and taking away all her signing authorities. That will be effective yesterday, but she doesn't know that yet." "Okay, Luke. Thanks for letting me know. I'll get my staff working on it right away. Give me a call when you're ready." "Will do, Ethan, and thanks. Probably next week, Wednesday or Thursday. I'll call." I had a shower and shave and vacated the motel. A waste of a few bucks, but but I wasn't going to sleep in my car. Not that I'd had much sleep anyway. I got to my store just after my office manager, Isabel, opened up. She looked after everything in the office and did some counter work with customers as well. I had a young girl working the counter and display area and 3 techs working in the back. I was usually helping all over when I was in the store, but if a large customer, like the one I had just done the troubleshooting for, needed anything other than routine stuff, I handled it myself. They were paying for my expertise, so I didn't feel right in sending over one of the techs unless I had their permission first. Usually I went because it allowed me to keep in personal touch with them. Isabel saw me walking up the sidewalk and waited for me. "Luke, what are you doing here? I thought you wouldn't be back till Saturday." "Yeah, that was the plan, but I got finished early and drove back last night." Was Clara surprised? "Or did you tell anyone you were coming home yesterday?" "She will be surprised. Let's get the coffee going and go to your office. I'll tell you the whole story." "Oh, that doesn't sound good." "Trust me, it's not. Spread the word to the staff. If anyone asks for me, I'm not here." "No one, especially Clara or anyone from her office." "I'll let them know, and also let them know that if they screw up, the wrath of Isabel will descend upon them." "Thanks, Isabel. Let's get a coffee then, close your door." We got our coffees and she spoke to the techs in the back, explaining that I'm not here and not expected back till sometime Saturday. Chloe, the front counter girl, would be told when she showed up for work. She came in later than the techs since she had to drop her young daughter off at daycare. It was the only perk she ever asked for in the years she worked for me. Isabel was my right and left hands. She probably knows more about the day-to-day part of the business than I do. She'd come in looking for work just about the time I was starting to really get swamped. She isn't much to look at, a bit overweight with rather plain features, something like you envision when someone says single school marm. That isn't really a fair comparison though. She knew office work inside out, could do all the accounting up to a P&L, and was great with people. Her most amazing attribute was her personality. If you went by looks alone, you'd never notice her. If you heard her before seeing her, she's someone you definitely want to meet. I'd hired her the same day she came in. No other applicants came close to having the qualifications I needed. It turns out that her hubby had left her the day after their youngest daughter got married. That was a few months before she came to see me. He'd been planning it for some time, apparently, and left her with little but the clothes she owned and whatever she had in her RRSP. I gathered it wasn't much. He'd cleaned out all the other accounts. The house was over-mortgaged, and there was no way for her to make the payments. She just handed the keys into the bank and signed a quitclaim. He departed for parts unknown with some arm candy that was far prettier. Maybe prettier, but I doubt nicer or smarter. But then I'm biased. She'd become indispensable since I'd hired her over 4 years ago. Just after I hired her, her oldest daughter, Sophia, came in to talk to me. Isabel had taken the actions of her ex pretty hard and didn't have a lot of self-esteem when she came in to interview for the job. Her daughter wanted to make sure that it wasn't just a sympathy ploy, my feeling guilty for the actions of another of my ilk. I assured her that the hiring was on merit alone and that she was actually overqualified for what I needed at the time. Sophia seemed a bit doubtful and checked up on me from time to time, as did her youngest daughter, Emma. They gradually thawed when they realized I was on the up and up. After I told Isabel the story of last night, she just sat at her desk, trying not to weep. Why does this shit always happen to the good people, the ones who did nothing to deserve it? I had no answer. She knew exactly what I was going through. I hung around the store, called the divorce lawyer who would see me first thing, and generally stayed out of the way until after 9 o'clock just to make sure Clara would be at work. I called a friend of mine who owned a locksmith business and told him what I needed. He said he'd meet me at the house around noon. I went to a business that sells moving materials like boxes and tape. I bought a few more of a variety of sizes than I hoped I would need, and some packing tape. I went down to a branch of the motor vehicle registration office and told them I was thinking of buying this car and gave them the plate number. The girl came back in about 10 minutes with a printed history of the vehicle, including the current and past owners and their addresses. The best $25 I ever spent. Then I stopped into a florist that I had never frequented before and explained to the manager what I wanted. She wasn't buying that it was a practical joke, but he promised of an extra $50 to have my order ready by 3 o'clock made her agreeable to my request. I left half on deposit so she could rest assured that I'd be back. The florist was near the building where Maya Fields had her office, so I just walked over and took the elevator to the top floor. It certainly wasn't what I expected. The elevator opened directly into the reception area. A small sitting area was just to the right, and the hall to the offices started just left of the receptionist. Several secretaries were busy behind reception. "Good morning, Luke Davis to see Maya Fields." She brought up the schedule on her computer. "Yes, of course, Mr. Davis. Ms. Fields will be with you shortly. Would you like some coffee?" Thank you. I'd love some. She went in the back somewhere and came out with a mug with the name of the law firm on it. I sat back and waited for Maya Fields. She wasn't at all what I expected, but then isn't that usually the case? She was tall, maybe a bit taller than my 5 feet 11 inches, and very well proportioned. Her brown hair was curled and shoulder length. She wasn't beautiful in the usual sense of the word, but she had a presence. For the first time since I arrived home last night, I thought I might be able to see a light at the end of the tunnel, or at least enough to see I was in a tunnel. Mr. Davis, I'm Maya Fields. Remind me to thank Ethan for the referral. Miss Fields, I'm very pleased to meet you. Please call me Luke. Everyone does. Okay, Luke it is. Come with me and let's get started. Please bring your coffee. I followed her into a large, well-appointed office. One wall lined with bookshelves holding numerous legal reference books. The wall to the right of her desk was all windows that looked out over the center of the city. You could easily see the mountains where I used to go camping, far in the distance. Luke, I need you to tell me exactly what's going on, and whether you have any proof of impropriety. I handed her my camera and told her to just push the video button, then push playback latest. I don't think you'll have much doubt after seeing this. I sat back in my chair while she watched some of the video. How long is this? In total, it's about 35 minutes, but the first part, as you heard, is just audio. I was just down the hall from the bedroom when I recorded that. The rest of it was from the spare bedroom across the hall. They had no idea I was there. Okay, Luke, what exactly do you want? Really want? Maya, I've busted my butt for over 30 years building up my business. If I may say so, it's become quite successful. It's evident that all she sees is a meal ticket. She even says so. We've hardly been intimate for the past 2 years. Now I know why she's tired or not in the mood. That is ending as of right now. I want her gone, out of my life. Totally. Do you have a prenup or postnup? Yeah. Her dad insisted on a prenup. He thought I was after her for her supposed inheritance. He died a couple of years ago without leaving a thing. He drank or gambled all of it away. Do you have the document with you? Do you have a phone I can use? I'll get Ethan to fax you a copy. I'll get him to send copies of all the business records too. You'll probably need them at some point. Good idea. I probably will. Thank you. Now, your business. Are you the sole owner? It's actually a LLC. I incorporated a few years ago when I started getting really busy. It was better for me, liability-wise, and for insurance to have it incorporated. I'm the owner and president. Clara, my wife, was a director only. She holds no other interest in the business and always said that she wanted it that way. Okay, I understand. What I need you to do is not do anything rash. I know you're upset and disappointed, but don't go do anything stupid that will give her or her lawyer some ammunition. I got over upset and disappointed last night. Now I'm more angry now than I've ever been in my life. She and her boyfriend are going to wish they'd never met and never, ever screwed with me. I laid out my plans for the rest of the morning. She told me to get to my bank as soon as possible to make sure Clara had no signing authority on anything but her own accounts. If I gave Maya the details, she'd have her staff relate new account numbers to any companies that had automatic bill payment. She also told me to get hold of my insurance company, personal and corporate, and make the appropriate arrangements with them. Feeling that I was in good hands, I left Maya and headed over to the bank. My account manager was busy, but the branch manager would see me immediately. I went in and found out that the manager who had been there for longer than I remembered had retired. The younger than me anyway, woman sitting behind the desk rose to greet me and shake my hand. I explained to her what was happening and what I needed done right away. I assured her that the appropriate forms for my business, removing Clara from the company, would be forthcoming from my lawyer. Diane, the manager, had one of her staff bring all the forms I would need to sign, as well as the records for the company. By the time I left an hour later, Clara had no access to any of the business accounts, including the credit card registered to the company which I canceled. A new one was on the way, and I could pick it up in the bank later in the week. The only accounts she could touch were her savings, her RRSP, and the checking account I had removed my name from. I closed all the joint accounts and opened the necessary ones for myself. I had called Ethan at his office and let him talk to Diane. He assured her that it was all above board and his staff were working on it as they spoke. Mr. Davis, I'm truly sorry for all this. I hate to see it happen to anyone, let alone a good customer. I hope this won't affect our business relationship. Thank you, Diane. You've been most helpful. My sincere thanks to you and your staff. My wife might come in and make a scene when she finds out, but as far as our business relationship, I don't expect that to change much. Thank you, Mr. Davis. Good luck. I left the bank and headed home, stopping long enough to grab a sandwich and beverage from a small store not far from the house. The locksmith was parked in front, waiting for me. I told him what I needed done and where everything was and left him to it. My friend couldn't come himself, though he wanted to, but he had sent one of his best technicians to do the work. While the locksmith worked, I took all the boxes that I had purchased, taped them up, and began dumping all of Clara's clothes and personal possessions into them. Her clothing alone took 4 large boxes. It might have taken more boxes, but folding neatly wasn't in my plans. I just stuffed them until I could barely tape them shut. I didn't bother boxing the TV from the bedroom. I'd paid for it, but didn't want it. She had said she needed it to help her go to sleep when I was out of town. As if. I placed it on top of one of the boxes in the yard. By the time I finished, there were 4 large boxes and 4 smaller, not much but smaller, one sitting on the lawn, along with her TV, stereo, and all our CDs. She could have them. She had bought them, but I never heard them played. Just more stuff she had to have. Well, now she had it. The locksmith finished his job just about the time I had finished with the boxes. Did you get the garage as well? I don't want her garage door to work with the old key or the opener. No worries, Mr. Davis. All taken care of. The boss said he'd send the bill to your company. He handed me 2 new remotes. These are coded different, one for each door. The spares are on the counter in the house. Thank you. I appreciate it. And tell him thanks for the great service. Will do, Mr. Davis. Take care now. With that, the locksmith drove off, leaving me standing in the doorway of my house, looking at all the items on the lawn. I got the camera from my car, took several photos, then went down to my home office and printed them off. I had received a call from Maya requesting a copy of the whole video I had taken. I burned a couple of DVDs to drop off at her office, as well as a couple of spares. I had plans for them. The video was date and time stamped, so there's no way someone could claim it was doctored. I left the house, making sure everything was locked. Short of breaking a window, Clara or anybody else wouldn't be able to get in. I went to the florist who had finished making up my order. I paid her the agreed-upon amount, including the bonus. I then asked her if she used anyone to make casual deliveries, not a delivery service or business. She gave me the name of a young guy who hung out at the mall. With her description, I found him easily. Are you Jerry? I asked. Who wants to know? The kid had an attitude. The lady at the flower shop says you make deliveries for her sometimes. Is that right? Yeah. So what? I need to have these and this car delivered. There's $50 in it for you. I don't do no illegal shit. This legit? All you have to do is go to this office and deliver these to Mrs. Clara Davis. You don't have to do anything else. The only thing is, it has to be at 4 p.m. today. No sooner, no later. Can do? For $50, you got your man. Just give me the address. I handed him a slip of paper with the address of Clara's office on it. I don't have to say nothing? No, just that you have a delivery for Clara Davis and it has to be personally delivered to her. They'll make sure she comes to get it. She works in that office, just behind the counter. Okay, are you Mr. Davis? You don't know who sent it. You're just the delivery guy, right? You got it, Mr. $50. Not a problem. It's only a short walk from here. I'll have it there for 4 o'clock. Good. The flower lady said you wouldn't let me down. He grinned, pocketed the $50 and headed down the street toward her office. To say that the delivery set the cat among the pigeons would be an understatement. True to his word, Jerry presented himself to the front desk at Clara's office at exactly 4 o'clock. The receptionist called her to the counter, just as I expected. Clara took the 15 black flowers and vase back to her desk before opening the card I had planned on delivering last night. I had made some changes to it. The front was all flowery and said happy anniversary. I left that alone. Inside, on one side of the card had been a large, flowery 30. I had X'd it out with a large black marker, and then in red had overwritten the whole thing with a 0. Inside the card were the photos of all the stuff sitting on the lawn. I didn't think it was necessary to sign it. She would have no doubt who sent it. Clara went hysterical, from what I was told later. I know she tried to call my cell at least 20 times. I just deleted the messages without listening. She must have called my office, but as I had asked, as far as they knew I wouldn't be back until tomorrow sometime. There was a message from Isabel relating that Clara had called and was upset and nearly incoherent. She also said for me to lay low. The staff would cover for me. I called Isabel back and asked that they just say as they were told. I would be at the house. I gave her the number of a second cell that I had picked up. I parked my car in the garage where Clara used to park and made sure that the garage was securely locked. I went into the kitchen, grabbed an iced tea from the fridge, and went down to my home office. I unpacked a couple of boxes containing web cameras and set them up, one looking out from the front door, and the second overlooking the deck and backyard. They both provided streaming video and would work in relatively low light. It was about 4:45 when Clara pulled into the driveway. I could see, from the webcam, her throw the garage door opener onto the floor of her car when it wouldn't work and get out and walk toward the garage. She was lost to sight as she tried to open it with her key. Next, she came to the front door and tried her key, of course without success. This was repeated in back and the basement. She came back to the front door and rang the doorbell. I didn't answer. She pounded on the door, and again, I didn't answer. She sat down on the doorstep and started bawling. I gave her a few minutes, then called her cell. As you can see, this is no longer your home or house. Get Lovery Boy John, or anybody to come and move your stuff. He and his wife probably have a spare room. Any further contact with me is to be through my lawyer, Maya Fields. Any breach and I'll get a restraining order. But Luke, I ended the call. I knew it had showed on her call display as an unknown number, so there was no way for her to call me back. I was totally serious and wanted nothing to do with her. I saw her punching a number into her cell, then stopped monitoring the camera. I just didn't care anymore. She could leave her stuff until it got moved or stolen. It didn't matter to me. When I looked out a couple of hours later, everything had been removed from the lawn. I didn't know or care who had taken it or where it had gone. I had unplugged the landline when I'd gotten home. I plugged it in again, but set it not to ring. It would go straight to the answering machine. I fully expected a shit storm to hit when she told our kids what had happened. They thought their mother walked on water. I was just the sperm donor and supplier. I guess that was partly my fault. I had worked hard to build up the business and hadn't always been there for them. When or if I felt like it, I'd return any calls they made the next day. I'm sure that if I asked Maya, she would tell them the way it is and why. I loved my kids, but wouldn't take any crap from them. I went to bed early in the spare room and slept soundly. It had been a hell of a couple of days. Next morning, I put the coffee on and listened to the phone messages, 3 from my daughter and 2 from my son. The last one had been at 2 a.m. The ones from Clara, over 30 of them, I just deleted. I debated calling the kids, but decided to postpone it until later. I had a couple of errands to run. I went to a postal box store and got a couple of padded envelopes. After addressing them, I wrote a note for each one and enclosed it. When I had told Maya what I wanted to do, she said it was legal. Mean-spirited and vengeful, but legal. I didn't mail them yet. I then went to an internet cafe, bought a coffee and 60 minutes of time on a computer. I searched out John K. Burns, Clara's lover, and got all the info I could on him. He worked for a company that had their head office in the same building where Clara worked. From his LinkedIn account, I'd say he wasn't all that successful. Just an average office guy doing an average job. I researched the company he worked for. The principal owners were staunch churchgoers. They operated their business on Christian principles, and every employee had signed a code of ethics when they were hired, no exceptions. Interesting. I wonder what they'd think of my video with one of their employees committing adultery. I would save that for later unless he tried something funny. I went back home and saw Clara's car sitting in the driveway. I just drove on by and went downtown. I could outwait her. Most of what I wanted to do, I could do at my store if necessary. I knew that at some point I would have to face her, but as far as I was concerned, it would be with her lawyer on the other side of a conference table for Maya and me. When I returned a couple of hours later, the car was gone, but there was a note on the door. I crumpled it up and threw it into the garbage without reading it. There were more phone calls from my kids. I called my son first. Ryan, you've been calling me and I know why. Do you know why, other than your mother told you to? No, Dad. What the hell is going on? Mom is almost hysterical. I couldn't almost understand her. She was bawling so much on the phone. Did you really put all her stuff on the lawn, like she said? Well, you can get the details from her, but I found her cheating on me. I have the video to prove it. She can spin it any way she wants, but cheating is cheating. What do you mean video? You taped her doing something? I came back from a job early. Instead of getting home today like I planned, I arrived Thursday night. Let's just say that she and her boyfriend didn't expect me home. I got my camera and videoed the two of them for over half an hour before I left. Not much of an anniversary. Dad, are you sure? Like Mom worshipped the ground you walked on. She'd never cheat on you. Never. Oh, I'm sure. The video doesn't lie. What she worshipped was the money I brought home so she could have all her things. Next time she calls, ask her if the phrase stupid meal ticket means anything to her. I'd be interested in her response. Ryan, I know I haven't been the best dad in the world, that I missed out on a lot when you were growing up, but believe this, son. I have never and have no reason to lie to you. Whatever happens, don't forget that I love you, you and your sister. I have to go now. I have to call Nora now. Dad, I don't know what to say. I'll ask her about that next time she calls. She calls all the time, so it shouldn't be long. Dad, I know you love me, us. Bye for now. I disconnected and called my daughter. Well, Nora, I guess you know by now. Know what, Dad? That mom's hysterical? That you locked her out for no reason? That you left all her stuff on the lawn? Yeah, I know that. What I don't know is why. Well, Nora, there is a reason. I caught your mother cheating on me. As I told Ryan, no matter how she spins it, cheating is just that. Mom would never do that. I have half an hour of video that says otherwise. If you insist, I'll let you watch it, but I advise against it. Video? What video? I came home early from my last business trip and caught her and her boyfriend and videoed it with this new camera I've got. It's clear. There's no mistake. I can't believe it. Mom would never. Next time she calls, ask her these two things. Does the name John K. Burns mean anything to her? And what does the phrase stupid meal ticket mean? If she's at all honest, she'll tell you. If not, well, I can always let you see the video, though I advise against it, like I said. God, Dad, this is too much. I find it really hard to believe. Yeah, well, for better or worse, you never did put much stock in anything I had to say. Having said that, remember, no matter what the fallout from this is, I do love you too, you and Ryan. I have to go now. Call me later after talking to your mother. She sounded deflated as she answered. Okay, Dad. Bye for now. I ended that call as well, and saw that Isabel had left a message on my throwaway phone. I'd call her later. I went to the spare room and laid down for a nap. From what I've heard so far, the only ones who think I'm right are my staff, my lawyer, and my banker. Oh well, it is what it is. I really hadn't expected much more, especially from my kids. This could be a real learning experience for them. There was no way I was going to sugarcoat it. I woke up to somebody pounding on the front door. Instead of answering, I checked the webcam to see who it was. It was Burns, with my soon-to-be ex-wife standing behind him. I had no interest in what they had to say. All he'd get from pounding on the door was a sore hand. 10 minutes later, they were gone. I left soon after, to get something to eat. Time to try some new places. I didn't want to go where I was known, except for the coffee shop across from my store. The old couple who owned it thought I was their surrogate son, so I'd be okay there. I drove for quite a while, not going anywhere in particular. I didn't really feel all that hungry, but pulled into a pub to grab something to eat. I'd heard of the place, but since it was so far from my house, I'd never been there. It was fairly quiet for a Saturday night. I ordered a beer in Clubhouse, apparently the house special. If nothing else, it filled the bill, and the price wasn't too outrageous. I sort of paid some attention to the TVs that had various sports on them. BC was losing the football game with Calgary on one screen. Some golfer made a hole-in-one and won a car on a second, and some wrestlers were doing their thing on another. Typical Saturday night entertainment. I finished my beer and sandwich and left the pub. With no other plans, I ended up going back home. My daughter's car was in the driveway, and she was sitting on the stoop. I had no idea how long she'd been waiting. Nora? Dad, I've been waiting for you. My keys don't work. I'm not surprised. I had all the locks changed. I'll give you and Ryan yours after all this is settled, if you still want them. Of course I want them. Why not now? Think about it. You'll figure it out. Now why are you here instead of home with David? David was her husband. They didn't have any kids yet, but we're trying. I need to talk about Mom. She wants me to talk some sense into you. And she thinks it will work? Not bloody likely. Come in. I'll make some coffee unless you want something stronger. She followed me into the house. I reached behind her and made sure the door was latched and locked. You really don't want her in here, do you? Not at all. She can stay with her boyfriend. She says you're wrong. There is no boyfriend. She doesn't think you have a video either. It's just something you dreamed up. I could tell that Nora was trying to keep her temper. She seemed to know that yelling would get her escorted out the door. Well, tell you what. Next time you talk to her, tell her to have her lawyer call mine. Maya has a copy and a couple of spares. I'm sure she'll be happy to give the lawyer one. Maya Fields is my lawyer. I don't know if your mother has one. If she doesn't, she'd better. There's no way to reconcile this? Mom's hoping that there's some way you can get past this. Oh, so now she admits it's more than something I made up? Dad, when I asked her about those things you said on the phone, she just broke down. So yes, I guess you could say she admits there's a problem. Well, it's her problem, not a problem. I think you're being too hard on her. You're not perfect, you know. Nora would always stick up for her mother, even if she turned out to be a convicted axe murderer. I never claimed to be perfect, but I never, ever, cheated on her. Not once since the day I met her. It's too bad she can't say the same thing. I was busting my butt building up a business that put food on the table and a roof over our heads. If I wasn't working, I was here. Can she say the same? I was starting to get really pissed. Maybe I should give you a copy of the video? Then, Miss High and Mighty, you might see the light. Until then, don't discuss it again, ever. As long as you stick up for her, I'm not interested in your opinion. She'll clean you out, you know? I think not. Her father made us sign a prenup before we got married. I hated him for it at the time. Now I'm thanking my lucky stars. She never said anything about that. Tell her to get her lawyer to ask Maya for a copy. Ethan, my regular lawyer has the original. Anything else? No, Dad. Nothing. I'm having trouble believing it all. She opened the door and walked slowly back to her car, head down as if deep in thought. Welcome to my world. Hi to David. Nora drove away. I assumed to go back home to her husband. I didn't know nor care where Clara was. I awoke Sunday to a pelting rainstorm. Well, if nothing else, it will keep Burns and Clara away from the house. Anyone out there would be soaked in seconds. I stood in my living room, sipping my first coffee of the day, just watching the rivulets flowing down the street into the gutter. Just like my marriage. I heaved a sigh and then went downstairs to my home office. I would work from home today. I had one computer linked to the server at work so I could see what I'd missed for the last week. There wasn't much for me to do. Isabel had looked after most of it, just leaving a few things that she knew I'd want to look after myself. I finished about an hour later, then logged onto my home computer, the one not networked to the store. I checked the inbox every day while I was away. It was full again. Most of them I deleted without reading. I didn't usually read forwarded jokes, cute photos, cartoons, and the like. I did see the Nigerians had a few $1 million I could claim. I did scan through everything before deleting the ones I couldn't be bothered to read. There were several emails, all dated yesterday, from a Kenny B. I didn't know who that was, but when I saw the subjects, I had an idea. Kenny B was John K. Burns. He wanted me to forgive my wife and take her back. He didn't mean anything. She was just lonely, and one thing led to another. Yada yada yada. I didn't bother answering, but I moved them into a special folder I set up. Anything from him or Clara would go in there. I Googled alienation of affection and read up on it. I'd ask Maya about that next time we talked. Meanwhile, I had to get a package ready for Mrs. Burns and for Mr. Burns' employer. On a hunch, I went to the filing cabinet and searched through all the papers stored in there for Ian's. I found it, a copy of Clara's contract for employment. It contained a morals clause. I bet she had forgotten all about it. Just another arrow in my quiver. Maybe I'd have to get a package ready for her employer as well. It was time to quit. I changed the passwords on all the computers in the house, then shut them down. Today would be a veg in front of the tube day. My mood perfectly matched the crappy weather outside. The answering machine showed 4 new messages, 1 each from Nora and Ryan, 2 from Clara. I deleted hers without listening to them. Nora just wanted to apologize for last night. Ryan said he'd call back. He'd talked to his mother and didn't like her answers. Maybe he's starting to see the light, I thought. I turned on the TV and tried to find something to take my mind off everything. No go. I turned it off and found my Kobo e-reader. I had several books on it that I hadn't read. Soon I was lost in the world of history and espionage, subjects I enjoyed reading about when I had time. Monday morning I called a junk company, the ones who will haul away your junk for a price. I told them that the stuff I wanted gone would be in the driveway, and they could bill my office. They promised that they would pick it up sometime today. I dragged all the bedroom furniture except the lamps out to the driveway. I didn't want any of it, especially the bed. I did like the lamps though. We'd had them forever. I would search for new lampshades sometime. I went into work, the last one in. I gathered the staff around and told them what was going on. I also emphasized that in no way was Clara allowed to call me or see me. Anything she had to say could be said to my lawyer. No exceptions. Isabel again promised her wrath, just in case they didn't understand the message. They did. I told Chloe and Isabel that if Clara came into the store to insist, politely, that she leave. If she wouldn't, call the police to come and remove her. Under no circumstances was she allowed behind the counter. She was not an owner or even a director of the company any longer. Everyone understood, expressed their sympathies, and went back to work. To all outward appearances, it was business as usual. Later that morning, I went down the street to a furniture store we did business with. I told the sales rep that I wasn't in the mood, nor did I have time, for dickering. I wanted a bedroom suite, queen-size bed with a pillow mattress, and I wanted it delivered tonight. She assured me it was possible, but the delivery at that time would cost more. I signed the order and gave her a check. He boss okayed it. We'd done quite a bit of business there. For lunch, I went across the street to my favorite coffee shop. The word must have gotten out. Olga fussed around me like a mother hen. Slim, her husband, just patted me on the back and said they'd be there for me. It meant a lot. I went back to the store. Chloe handed me a fistful of messages and said all but one were from Clara. I kept the one and chucked the rest. The one was from Maya asking me if the grounds were adultery and did I want to name a correspondent. Yes to both. I returned her call. She was in conference, so I spoke to her clerk and relayed that yes, grounds were adultery, and yes, there was a correspondent. I gave her the details. I asked the clerk to have Maya call me about alienation of affection. Maybe a lawsuit would get A-hole's attention, or at least piss him off. I was having second thoughts about putting it off until later. I called Ethan and set up an appointment for later that week. Almost everything was ready. I just had to give him the dates of the meeting of the company directors. I told him to use last Thursday. Well, it wasn't strictly the truth, but that's the last time I saw Clara in person, so to speak. The irony wasn't lost on him, but he didn't say anything. I asked him to make sure that a copy was sent to Maya and my bank, attention the manager. He promised that it would be done immediately. There was a commotion in the front of the store. I knew at once what it was. Clara was trying to force her way into my office. Isabel and Chloe were holding her back. I called on the intercom for the techs to come up front as reinforcements. I was looking through the one-way glass, watching the struggle when Clara hauled off and slapped Isabel, hard, in the face, leaving the imprint of her hand. Isabel called the police just as I was picking up the phone to do so. They arrived quickly and got it all settled down. They escorted Clara out of the store, saying they would be back for witness statements later. Yes, Isabel wanted her charged with assault. She had witnesses, and one of the techs had taken a few photos of the handprint on her face. God, the woman had become unhinged. Payback is a bitch, and it had just started. I called Ethan and got him to arrange for a restraining order keeping Clara and Burns at least 100 meters away from the store and 300 away from the house and property. I relayed what had just happened, and he was happy to expedite it. None of us would have to go to court for that. We might have to if there was a trial for the assault. I doubted that it would. At best, it was a mild case of common assault, and no one was really hurt. Just having her charged might temper some of her actions. Wednesday, I went to Ethan's office and signed all the corporate documents. I had him make copies for me. Maya and the bank already had theirs. I asked him about the prenup. He told me it was pretty cut and dried. Clara would leave the marriage with what she brought into it. Actually, a bit more since she had her RRSPs that I had been paying into. She also had her car that she was making the payments on. I had no use for it anyway. She couldn't touch the business or our house since her name wasn't on title. She could try since we had been married for so long, but her chances weren't good with the evidence I had. Maya called my cell just as I left Ethan's office. The divorce documents were ready to be served. Did I know where Clara was? I hadn't thought of that. I had no idea. I told her to try her office and see if she was at work. They could serve Clara there, or at least tell her where the documents could be served. I then asked her about the alienation of affection. She counseled against it since he was already named as a correspondent in the divorce. After the divorce was settled would be time enough for that. I told her I didn't really expect anything from it, but I wanted Burns to know just how totally pissed I was. I was mad and I would get even. My easygoing nature was gone. For good? I didn't know. Time would tell. I immersed myself in my work, going home only to change clothes and get a couple of hours sleep. I didn't have much of an appetite, but did manage to grab a bite to eat different times during the day. Customers who called asking for support were told that I couldn't come, but would one of the senior techs be okay? Most agreed that the tech could probably deal with their problem. The only one that I left the office to see was one of my first ever business customers who had, over the years, become a close friend. He was supportive when I told him about Clara and would tell his wife. She and Clara had become close friends and worked on a couple of charities together. I wondered if that friendship would survive the fallout. 3 weeks after I'd caught Clara and her boyfriend, Maya called to tell me that they had finally been able to serve the divorce documents to Clara. They couldn't find a home address for her, so had to wait until she returned to work. Clara had called Maya, telling her she refused to sign and would fight the divorce. Maya told her to get her own lawyer since she was acting for me. Any discussion Maya would have would be with Clara's lawyer, after he had gone through everything with her. I knew that she would fight it. Who wouldn't? She was losing her gravy train and probably could hardly survive on what she earned. The real world was starting to bite her in the butt. I refused any support payments until she could prove need. I, as was Maya, was fairly certain any support would cease when the divorce was final. The video was pretty damning. I was really surprised when Clara pleaded not guilty to assault and the case would go to trial. I couldn't believe that her lawyer would let her do that. It turned out he did counsel against it, but she ignored him. Instead of being a relatively routine, minor offense, she wanted a trial to try to justify her actions. As the judge said, it was her right. The trial was set for a few months away, and all my staff would be called as witnesses. They had wanted to call me as well, but I was removed from the witness list when it was determined that I wasn't physically present when the assault occurred. I guess technically that was true, although I did see it happen through the one-way glass in my office. In any case, there were plenty of other witnesses. Meanwhile, the divorce wound its way through the legal system. Clara, through her lawyer, put up every roadblock possible, even trying to cast doubt on the validity of the video. The judge, a female if it matters, reserved judgment until she had seen it. She didn't look very pleased when she returned to court a couple of hours later. As disgusting as the video was, it was the audio she really didn't like. Divorce proceedings would continue. Clara wanted joint counseling to see if the matter could be resolved. I didn't want this, but she did win this round. She would go to counseling on her own for 2 sessions, then there would be 3 joint sessions. I told her that for the joint sessions I would be bringing my own, male, counselor, and if she and her counselor had a problem with that, then the whole thing would be a waste of my time. She and her counselor didn't like it, but they did agree in the end. At the start of the first joint session, I walked into the office where Clara and her counselor, Samantha Adams, were waiting. Polite introductions followed. She and my counselor, Harry Simpson, were of course acquainted. Theirs was a small world. Ms. Adams indicated that I should sit on the sofa beside Clara. I refused and sat in a chair across from her desk. Harry got a chair and sat beside me. "Thank you for coming, Luke. We hope this will help resolve the situation," Samantha started. I interrupted. "My name is Mr. Davis to you. Harry can call me Luke since I'm his client. I am not yours. And one more thing, if at any point Mrs. Davis starts this I didn't mean it bullshit, I'm out of here. That's a blatant lie, and I won't put up with falsehoods. Do we understand each other?" If they wanted attitude, I had lots to offer. To give her credit, she regained her composure quickly. "As you wish, Mr. Davis. I have already heard from your wife her side of it. Now I would like to hear your side as well, exactly what happened. I don't know how much or what you've been told. Do you want to hear the whole sordid story, or just the highlights? Have you seen the video?" I asked. I was fairly certain that Clara had put a real woe is me slant on her story. "No, I haven't seen the video." "Well, it would have saved a lot of time if you had. A picture is worth 1,000. In this case, it's a video," I replied. She nodded. "So, you want to hear everything?" "Yes, please. I need to hear it in your words." "Okay," I replied. Over the next half hour related the events of that week, starting with the Sunday when I had driven to the plant, ending when I had shot the video then left the house. Clara tried to interrupt a couple of times, and I made it quite plain that if it continued I would be leaving and the sessions would be over. She remained on the sofa, crying quietly as I spoke. "So, Luke," she started. I gave her a hard look, narrowing my eyes. "I'm sorry, Mr. Davis. As I was about to say, you had never seen any evidence of her cheating on you prior to this." "No, I was too busy with my stupid business and being a stupid meal ticket," I replied bitterly. She was too good at covering up her tracks. "The only thing I know is that it was going on for quite a while since he was so at home, in my bed." I literally spat the words out. "So you don't know how long? Does it matter? Lying and cheating are lying and cheating. Doesn't matter if it was once or 1,000. Makes no difference, at least to me." Clara started to speak. "Luke, I just want—" "Shut up, Clara. You have nothing to say that I want to hear or would ever believe. If you're trying to tell me you're sorry, it's just that you're sorry you're losing your meal ticket. Sorry you got caught. Not sorry that you did it. Save your lies for someone who'll listen, not me." I hadn't raised my voice. It was flat, intense. She cringed as I spoke, then settled back on the sofa. Her tears continued to fall. The rest of the session went the same way, and Harry and I left after the hour was up. "Ms. Adams, if the other sessions are going to be like this, it's a total waste of time, yours and mine." "That may be, Mr. Davis, but the court ordered 3 joint sessions. We plan on holding you to it." "Your nickel," I said as we walked out of her office. Harry turned to me as we walked out of the building. "Look, do you want me to keep returning with you? You really didn't need me in there. You handled it all quite well." "Harry, I don't really need you, but I want you there. She won't be able to pull any underhanded shit if you're in the room. Let's just say you're the elephant in the room. Hard to ignore." "Okay, Luke, I'll be in touch," he said as we parted ways. I headed to my car and drove home. I decided that the rest of the evening would be for relaxation, some dinner, and a nice bottle of wine. I hoped to get an early night in my nice new bed. The best laid plans, as the saying goes. I had just got relaxed in front of the TV when there was a pounding on the front door. Instead of going down to the office and checking the webcam, I just looked through the peephole in the door. "Burns. Didn't dumbass know there was a restraining order against him? I didn't answer the door, just picked up the phone and called 911. I explained to the dispatcher that there was a person who was subject to a restraining order pounding loudly on the front door of my home. And no, I had no wish to talk to him and certainly wasn't going to confront him. She advised me that the police were on their way. They arrived a few minutes later, and I could hear some loud discussion outside the door. I watched through the living room window as he was placed in the back seat of the patrol car. The look he gave me could melt lead. The next week was fairly uneventful. I never heard from or about Burns at all. Clara never tried to contact me, and neither did our kids. Either they were busy or I was in the doghouse. I just continued to immerse myself in my work. One highlight of the week was that Chloe had found a nice guy and gotten engaged. They hadn't set a date yet. She was a good kid and deserved some happiness, and her daughter needed a father. I was happy for her. Isabel was alternately a mother hen and a pain in the butt, depending on the circumstances. I finally started going out to visit customers just to get away. I knew and appreciated that she was worried about me and what might happen with Clara. It was out of my hands, so I refused to worry about it. If push came to shove, I could sell the house, auction the contents and pay off the mortgages and debt, then divide the proceeds with Clara. I didn't know if it would come to that or not. Maya felt that we had a good case, and anything that Clara ended up with would depend on our goodwill. I never really did the bar scene before, and didn't want to start now. I began going to a gym and got a personal trainer to set up a good regimen, both physical and for my diet that had consisted of coffee and the odd sandwich for the past few weeks. I gradually, very gradually, began to feel better, physically if not mentally. At least after a good workout, I was able to sleep. The second counseling session didn't go any better than the first, except I had to sit there and listen to Clara try to justify her cheating. That was a non-starter, so I just let her ramble on and tuned her out. To this day, I couldn't tell you what she said. Harry made some notes, maybe to show that he was at least involved in the matter. After all, that's what I was paying him for. I asked him to see if Ms. Adams would cancel the other session. It would be a waste of time. Harry said that he'd call her, and also that he'd give me a written summary of what he had written down. Whatever. He got back to me early in the next week. The third session would go ahead as scheduled. That annoyed me, but it wasn't my call. I was still adamant that the divorce would go ahead, with or without Clara. He gave me a written summary of what Clara had said. There were no surprises, and nothing to indicate that I should try to keep the marriage together. As far as I was concerned, it was over except the formalities. For the third session, Ms. Adams brought in the big guns, the kids. Both my son and daughter had been well coached in what to say, what reasoning to present, and what response they should give to my questions. Their biggest problem was that I wouldn't play that game. I let them say their piece, listen to Ms. Adams say her part, then listen to Harry explain why I wouldn't have any questions or response. I'd already told him that if I couldn't trust my wife, there was no way on earth that I could stay married to her. He just put it a little more eloquently than I could, but the message was there. What little glimmer of hope Clara may have had died right there in the room. As far as I was concerned, it was a matter of negotiating the settlement. We were back in court the following week, and the judge allowed the divorce to proceed. The negotiations would be between our lawyers. I'd heard over the months that Maya was tough. After all, Ethan had mentioned that she didn't take prisoners. She gave me a quick hug as we left the court and told me she'd keep me informed. In about 6 months, I'd be single again. We finally negotiated down to she would keep her car and RRSPs. I would pay off the loan for her car but keep all the furnishings in the house. Clara was really pissed when I informed her that the entire bedroom suite had been taken to the landfill. She was the one who chose it. If the house was sold within 5 years, she was entitled to half the net proceeds. Since I'd already boxed and removed everything that could conceivably be considered hers that first night, she wasn't left with a whole lot. Hey, she screwed up a good thing. Life is like that. Shit flies when you get caught. After the divorce settlement was reached and recorded, I contacted Maya and asked her to go ahead with the lawsuit against Burns for alienation of affection. I didn't expect much to come of it. I also sent Mrs. Burns a copy of the video and a copy of the petition of divorce naming her husband as a correspondent. I had included a note telling her that if she ever wanted to talk about it to call me. I gave her my new cell number. I also sent a copy to Burns' employer with a note explaining what had transpired. I never heard back from them. About 2 weeks later, I was working out in the yard when an older model Chev Impala pulled up in front of the house, and a very pretty woman got out. She opened the back doors and 2 kids came piling out of the car. "Mr. Davis? I'm Elizabeth Burns. Can we talk?" "Of course. I didn't really expect you to come over. Can I get you and the kids something to drink? We can go in back on the patio. The yard's fenced in so the kids can't wander out into the street or anything." I opened the door, waiting for her and the kids to follow inside. She thought about it for a few seconds. I wasn't sure exactly why she was here. Oh, I knew the reason, but I don't know what she expected to accomplish by showing up on my doorstep. That would be nice. Maybe some iced tea or something. Ice water for the kids. They're used to that. Sure, please, follow me. I walked her through the house and showed her to the patio. She could pick her own chair. I got 2 iced teas and 2 waters and joined her on the patio. Okay, Mrs. Burns. Can I ask why you're here? Well, I know the reason, but I don't know exactly what you expect me to do. I settled back and sipped at my iced tea. It's Elizabeth, or Liz if you want. Actually, I just came to see who the man was that finally brought my cheating, lying scumsucker of a soon-to-be ex-husband down, and thank him from the bottom of my heart. She was smiling, something I really hadn't expected. You mean? Yes, we're getting divorced. By the time I'm through with him, he won't have a pot to piss in, and only a basement window to throw it out of. I knew he'd been cheating. 4 years, with several partners. You're the only one that had the balls to go after him. She gave a short laugh and sipped at her glass. The kids were running around on the grass without a care in the world. Do you know who Maya Fields is? Yes, she's the lawyer handling my divorce. Well, she's handling mine as well. John K. Burns is as good as plucked and fried, and I have you to thank. The video you sent me was the icing on the cake. Until I got it, he was trying to bluff his way out of the whole thing, saying he was seduced. It was short-term. All that crap. I wasn't buying it, but didn't have anything concrete. The video was certainly graphic. I just wanted to thank you in person. Well, I'm happy that it was for the best. It's always the cheater's spouse and kids that get thrown into the whole mess even though they did nothing wrong. I wanted you to see what kind of shit you were married to. I'm glad some good came of it. I was relieved that she wasn't pissed off at me. So tell me, is your your ex-wife going to stay with him? She was more relaxed now that the reason for her visit was out in the open. I really have no idea, nor do I really care, I replied. As far as I'm concerned, they made their bed and they can lie in it together or apart. Makes no difference to me. Actually, I'd thought about that, and if Clara had been halfway truly apologetic and taken full responsibility, I might have give thought to some kind of support. Her refusal to see what she had done wrong, the implication being it was my fault for catching them, put any thoughts of that out of my head. She and Burns deserved each other, but I couldn't see it lasting. She laughed. I could get used to the sound of that. She dashed my hopes quite quickly. We didn't own the house, just rented. I've already moved out and taken everything I want out of it. The kids and I are moving to Victoria where my folks live. I already have a job lined up and waiting for me. I just wanted to thank you before we go. She finished her iced tea. Well, I wish you the best of luck in the future. I hope things work out for you. For you and the kids, I said. I think we'll be fine, even better now that he's out of the picture. From what I gather, Maya can be ruthless. He'll get what he deserves. Rest assured. She's the best. I don't think she likes Cheater too much. We have to get going. Yes, I think so too. Thanks for the iced tea, Luke. Thank you for everything. You helped more than you'll ever know. She got the kids together, and I escorted them through the house and out to the car. Goodbye. Thanks again for everything. Liz, you're more than welcome. If you need anything else, well, you know where I live and you have my cell. She shook my hand, got in her car, and drove away into her new life. I waved goodbye and went back to my yard work, somewhat relieved on how well that had gone. Payback is a bitch. I finished what I had planned for the day and put everything away. I made sure the front of the house was all locked up, put on a pair of shorts and grabbed a nice cold beer from the fridge and went to relax on the back patio. I was dozing in the sun, enjoying the warmth of the late afternoon. I heard Isabel before I saw her, coming through the gate at the back of the yard. Don't you answer your door? She called. Only if I hear it, and it's someone I need to talk to. I laughed. She giggled and collapsed into a chaise lounge. You got something cold in the fridge? Sure. What's your pleasure? I pointed to my almost empty beer. I'd prefer some nice white wine if you have it. I never did develop a taste for beer. I've got Chardonnay or Pinot Gris. Take your pick. Chardonnay, please. I went in and poured a generous glass of Chardonnay and got myself another beer. So what brings you into this part of the world? Actually, I was visiting a friend that lives not too far from here and took a chance that you might be home. I just wondered how you were doing. All by yourself? She sipped at the Chardonnay. Oh, this is nice. Remind me to find out which one it is before I go. It's from a small winery called Silver Sage. I like their reds as well. How am I doing? Good. Living by myself doesn't bother me at all, but I must admit I'm thinking of downsizing. I sipped at my beer. You've been on your own for how long? You seem to get by okay. It's been over 5 years now, Luke. Yes, my life has settled into a nice, comfortable groove. I like where I live. I like where I work. I have lots of friends. I'm glad you're happy. I'm still getting used to it. She laughed. I didn't say happy. I think content would be more apartment. Yes, content. She leaned back in the chaise and sipped at her wine. Okay, content. Now why exactly are you here, mother hen? I don't buy this, just happen to be in the hood nonsense. I laughed at her, and she had the grace to blush. Damn, you weren't supposed to figure that out, she giggled. Actually, Luke, well, me and Chloe and the guys in back are worried about you. All you do is work and come back to this big old house. We'd like to see you get out more, get away from the job. It's not worth killing yourself putting in those long hours. We'd like to see you take a holiday. You haven't been on one in ages. Take a couple of weeks and bugger off somewhere. Isabel, I appreciate it. From all of you. I do. But I want to stick around until the divorce is final. When that happens, then I can let myself relax. I have thought about getting away, but not until then. I know you and the others can run the place for a couple of weeks. I'm not worried about that part. So what timeline are we looking at? Let's see. I made a show out of looking at my watch. 50 days, 14 hours, 12 minutes and 30 seconds. She broke out laughing. Be serious for a second. How long? Just over 2 weeks, actually 16 days from today. Then I'll be a free man. Well, as free as any slave, I guess. Okay, I'll hold you to it. Meanwhile, why don't you come over and let me cook you dinner one night? Isabel, I'd love that. Just tell me when. How about tomorrow night? I'll do a stuffed chicken dish I've been aching to try. You just bring yourself and some of that delicious Chardonnay. I'll ask a couple of my friends if they want to join us. It's a date. What time? Anytime afternoon. I've got no plans except to cook. Good. Tomorrow afternoon. I'll be there. Mission accomplished, she replied as she finished her wine. See you tomorrow, Luke. Don't forget the wine. I'll see myself out. Thanks, Isabel. I look forward to it. See you tomorrow. I leaned back and dozed off. I'd only had 2 beers, but I could feel them. I must be more tired than I thought. The next 2 weeks flew by. The dinner at Isabel's was great. Her friends had been married for eons and were delightful company. I was glad I brought 3 bottles of the Chardonnay she liked. Business was steady. I was finding that we were getting more small businesses interested in networking, and I was exploring adding a dedicated network tech to the staff. My repair techs could do some of the networking, but I felt it was time to bring in a specialist. Finally, the day came when my divorce was final. You would think that there would be some sort of celebration, but I didn't feel that way at all. I felt a profound sadness at what had been, what could, should, have been, as well as a sense of loss. Except for my kids, who I saw every once in a while, I was alone. As I said at one time to Isabel, alone but not lonely. I heard from various sources that Clara and Burns were having a rocky relationship. Without her stupid meal ticket and his wife leaving him, they were finding things fairly tight. I guess the lovey-dovey was a one-way street, as long as he didn't have to foot the bill. I don't know if his employer ever did anything about the video. It didn't matter anyway, at least to me. I finally let the staff, well, Isabel and Chloe anyway, browbeat me into taking a holiday. I wasn't all that interested in vegetating on a beach somewhere, so I rented a motorhome with a view to exploring Western Canada. The thing was big enough that I could tow my car, so I was able to set up somewhere then go exploring without having to pack everything up each time I wanted to go somewhere different. I had no plans and no itinerary, so just got everything hooked up and started driving. I spent my first night at a small campground only about 250 kilometers from home. Once I got set up, I could feel the tension leaving me. Maybe it was the cool, crisp mountain air. I got some groceries from the small convenience store and cooked a small steak for dinner, accompanied by a glass of nice Merlot. I found fellow RVers quite friendly. I had several couples stop to chat about where I was going. Most were able to give me some good tips on places to see and where to camp. I stayed in that campground for 2 nights, just relaxing and enjoying doing nothing. Doing nothing is hard when you're used to working 14-hour days, trust me on that. The 3rd morning of my official vacation, I was on the road early. I wasn't having any trouble with my moving house, but when climbing hills you could actually watch the gas gauge go down. Whatever I saved in accommodation would probably be spent on fuel. The bonus, though, was that I could stop almost anywhere and anytime I felt like it. I was assured by fellow campers that most campgrounds usually had spaces available even without a reservation. On my whole trip, I never had trouble getting a site when I wanted one. My 3rd night was spent in what they call a forestry campground, meaning no services, no power, no running water, etc. I was okay with that. The small house I was driving was pretty much self-contained. I couldn't get over how clear the sky was and how bright the stars were. It was almost like they were helping me celebrate. I sat out late that night just gazing at the fabulous sky. I ended up in a fairly large campground on my fourth night. I saw a few of the people I had seen from other campgrounds. It seems that's the way it was with the RV lifestyle. I had one lady, obviously traveling alone, ask me if I knew anything about computers. I assured her that I had at least a working knowledge of them, without going into details, and was able to help her with her small laptop. I told her that the biggest problem she had with it was that it was dying of old age. By computer standards, it was positively ancient. She thanked me profusely and assured me that she was looking at buying a new or newer one. I logged into my company's site to see what was going on. They seemed to be doing fine without me. Isabel and Chloe would see to that, in any case. If there was an emergency, they could always get hold of me. I checked my emails and was surprised to find several from Ryan. He had talked to his mom, and she was regretting everything that had happened, etc., etc., etc. Oh, really? He didn't state that she wanted to try and get together with me again, but the implication was there. I received a similar email from Nora. I thought my kids were smarter than that. The divorce wasn't even a week old yet. Later that week, I ended up in a small, family-owned campground. They held a get-together every evening for all their guests where they served coffee and snacks. If you wanted anything else, bring your own. I had no problem with that and wandered over just after dark. There must have been nearly 50 people gathered around the large campfire. I had brought a large glass of Merlot with me and was quite happy just to chat with fellow campers. Off to one side, I noticed a young man who didn't seem to fit in and definitely didn't seem to be enjoying himself. I walked over to talk to him. Hi, I'm Luke. Looks like you don't want to be here. He looked older than my impression when I first saw him. Well, it's not so much I don't want to be here. It's just that I spent all this money on school only to find that there's hardly any work out there for what I want to do. So, I help out my grandparents. They own this campground and I sort of do all the cleaning and stuff. I don't mind, but it seems like such a waste of my time. What did you take in school? I asked. Well, I'm trained as a MCSE, Microsoft Certified System Engineer. Sort of we set up and administer computer networks. It's a whole bunch of technical stuff, but I did well in the training, and I try to keep up to date with all the new stuff coming out. This certification, did you have to go to a special school or something? Of course I knew the answer, but was interested in his take on the training. Yeah, almost a year at the community college. The exams were sort of by connecting to the exam center. I found after the first one that you had to know your shit, or you were dead. Some guys tried to do the exams by just memorizing the answers on all the quizzes. Most found out in a hurry that that didn't work. Sounds impressive. And there's nothing around here for you? Nope, not really. I don't really want to move to a big city, either. I might have to after the camping season is over. There's nothing around here. What's your name? I don't think you told me. Jeff Winters. Like I said, my grandpa and grandma own this campground. I think they do it just for something to do, and they enjoy meeting all the people that come through. They have some friends that have been coming here for years. Well, Jeff, nice talking to you. I'm going to go mingle a bit and make an early night of it. See you later. I joined the group around the fire and noticed a little later that Jeff was gone. Next morning, I was up early. After breakfast, I strolled over to the main building to check on whether I could stay a couple of more nights and use the campground as a base for touring around. The nice-looking, elderly lady assured me that the site was mine for as long as I wanted. She gave me a bunch of pamphlets and showed me on a map the things that were worth seeing within a couple of hours' drive. We chatted for a while over the ever-present coffee, and I confirmed my initial impression that this lady was Jeff's grandmother. I left, assuring her that I would be back for the campfire that night, and headed out to explore. That night, I ended up talking to the grandfather. George and Selma were great people. It was easy to see why they kept the campground open. They had lived in the area for most of their lives and knew every nook and cranny and where the bodies were buried. I mentioned to George that I had talked with Jeff the night before. Yeah, the boy is getting a bit discouraged. He paid for all that shulin on his own, worked here, and a bunch of other odd jobs to pay for it. Luckily, he could live at home at the time. He's with us now. I know he'd like to be on his own, but he doesn't want to move to a city. If he could find work in a smaller place, he'd be a happy kid. I could see that George was genuinely concerned for his grandson. That certification thing he's got means a lot to him, doesn't it? I knew exactly what it was and how hard the work was to get it, but I didn't want to let on. Oh yeah, until he got that we never thought about internet or any of that stuff here or at home. He designed and built the network for the campground. Every site is hardwired and he put up a bunch of, I think he calls them wireless spots or something, so everyone can get on the internet how they want. He even set up the thing at home, but only he and Selma ever use it. I'm too old to try that stuff. He was obviously proud of the boy. Well, young man, George, Do you think Jeff would show me what he's done out here? I mean, with the internet? I'm sorta interested in this computer stuff, and I'd really like to see what he's done. Oh yeah, George laughed. You get him going on that stuff and he'll talk forever. I don't understand none of it, but he does. He'd love to show it off. Good. I'll look him up in the morning. Be interested to see what he's done. I gave my goodnights and went back to my motorhome, deep in thought. I was wondering just how big a place it had to be before Jeff considered it a big city. The next morning I was relaxing over a late coffee when Jeff drove by on an ATV. I waved him over. Hey Jeff, want a coffee? No thanks, Mr. Davis. I've got to make sure all the sites are clean before people start arriving. We've got a caravan coming in this afternoon. I must have shown my confusion. Caravan? I asked. Yeah, they're sorta like an organized group that travel together. They have what they call wagon masters and everything. We just tell them what sites they can use and they look after the rest. They're great to have in, 'cause it really lessens our workload. They do all the paperwork and everything, and usually the sites are all cleaned up when they leave. He tried to explain the concept to me, a real novice at this RV camping. Sounds too organized for me. I went on this trip to get away from that stuff. I laughed. Look, I was talking to your grandpa last night. He tells me that you did all the computer stuff for the campground. Yeah, well, I decided that I could put my training into practice. Almost everyone wants email and surfing the internet nowadays. I'm sorta interested in this computer stuff. Would you mind showing me what you've done? Not at all, Mr. Davis. Tell you what, I should be finished all this in an hour or so. Why don't I come and get you right after lunch? He sounded really pleased that someone would take a real interest in his work. Works for me, Jeff. I planned on just relaxing today anyway. Be interesting to see what you did. Great. See you in a while. Jeff sped off on his chores and I poured another coffee and relaxed in the nice warm sunshine. True to his word, Jeff came to get me on the ATV just after lunch. I told him that I could have walked over to the main building since it wasn't that far. He laughed and said he liked bombing around on the ATV and any excuse would do. We arrived at the main building and Jeff led me into the office. We spent the next 2 hours as he explained how he had set up the campground, run the wires, set up wireless access points, and all the rest of the network infrastructure. He really knew his work and was able to explain in layman's terms exactly what he had done and why. I was truly very impressed. This young man really knew his networking. It was really a shame that there wasn't any work near his home. I asked him about moving to work. He told me that if he had to move to a big city to get work in his field, he would, but wouldn't like it. I asked him what he considered a big city. After telling me, I knew that our city wouldn't fall into his category of big. I liked Jeff, and I liked his grandparents. I was thinking maybe I could help him, and them. What about your parents, Jeff? I asked. Surely they don't really want you moving too far away. My dad died in a farm accident a few years ago, so there's just me and Mom. She's got a small store in town that supports us. We're not rich or anything, but we're not wantin' either. Surely she doesn't want you to move. She told me after I finished my schooling to follow my dreams. If that meant moving away and into a big city, well, we just crossed that bridge when we got to it. Since there's nothing around here, I guess I don't have much choice. Yeah, it's tough, Jeff. But you sorta have to go where the work is unless there's some way of starting your own business. Problem is, from what I've seen, there's probably not enough work around here for full-time computer work. Yeah, I know, Mr. Davis. I'd like to stick around here, but a guy's gotta go where there's work. There's been a couple of computer shops start up, but like you said, there's just not a big enough market. Sorta my impression too. Look, Jeff, thanks for showing me around. You really did an impressive job. Anyone who knows computers and networking would be able to see that. Thanks, Mr. Davis. I really appreciate that. Look, I'm going to go for a walk and maybe catch a nap or something. See you at the fire later? You bet, Mr. Davis. My mom said she's coming over too. I'll look forward to meeting her. Talk to you later. I started walking along a trail that had been pointed out to me by his grandmother the day before. You had several choices of distance from 1.5 kilometers up to 10. I opted for a mid-length and did about 4 kilometers. It felt good, just strolling along and not worrying about anything but whether that osprey would actually catch a fish. Young Jeff had given me food for thought, and I decided to call Isabel later and see about setting something up without him realizing I would be his employer. I made my call later that afternoon and explained what I'd like to do and how we could do it without seeming intrusive. We decided that I was just acting on behalf of a friend, Isabel, who happened to be looking for someone with Jeff's skill set. Well, it wasn't really a total falsehood. We were, or at least would be, looking for a network tech. I felt that Jeff would more than fill the bill, and he wouldn't be all that far from home. I met Mary, his mother, and her friend that night. Though they weren't officially a couple, You could see that they cared for each other. She did allow that part of the reason Jeff didn't want to leave was because he was worried about her. More food for thought. I caught up with Jeff just after noon the next day when I knew he'd be finished his chores. Jeff, what would you think about moving to Kent if there was work? Kent? What's there? I don't think there's much work for me there. Well, I talked to a friend of mine last night. She told me they're looking for a network guy. I've got the info if you're interested. I know it's a city, but it's not like Vancouver or Calgary. They want a network guy? How come they can't find one there? They must be all over the place. Understandably, he sounded a bit doubtful. I have no idea. She just mentioned it when we were catching up. She's an old friend I've known for years. What do you think? You interested? You bet. Who do I talk to? Here, I wrote it down. Her name is Isabel, and she sorta runs the place. Really nice lady. I handed him the slip of paper. When do you think you could go see her? I could sorta run interference for you, and let her know when you're coming. I could probably be there first thing Monday. Do you really think I have a chance? Like, she doesn't know me from Adam. He was starting to sound more hopeful, even excited. Well, one thing I know for sure. If you don't show up, you won't get the job. Sure, there might be others applying, but that's the way it goes. If nothing else, it'll get you away from here for a day or two. What have you got to lose? I was trying to sell him on the idea without him being aware of it. Of course, he didn't know the fix was in. If he did want the job and was willing to move to get it, it was his. Geez, thanks Mr. Davis. I really appreciate what you did. Nobody ever did anything like that for me. By the way, what is this place called? All you have here is a name and address. It's called JC Consulting, LLC. They apparently do a bunch of different stuff with computers and networks, and like that. I've met a few of their people. They seem pretty nice. I swear he must have floated all the way home. That night around the campfire, his grandparents let me know how much they appreciated what I had done. George was a sly old fox. I don't think I fooled him for more than 30 seconds, but he never let on. He was happy for his grandson that Jeff finally had a chance to do what he trained for. I called Isabel at home the next morning since it was Saturday and the store wasn't open. Isabel, look, that boy I told you about. He'll be at the store Monday morning. His name is Jeff Winters. This has something to do with that mysterious phone call yesterday? Yeah. Long story short, his grandparents own the campground I've been in for the last few nights. He designed the wired and wireless networks for the campground. He's got his MCSE. I got him to show me what he'd done on the basis of being interested in computers. Considering he's on his own and out here in the boonies, he did a remarkable job. Now what I want you to do is do the interview and go over his resume. Then have him go for coffee or something and come back after lunch. Then tell him he's hired if he wants the job, and he starts a week from Monday. That will give him a week to find a place to live and get set up. Okay, Luke. I've got it. Why are you doing this? I just have to ask. Just who is this kid? I've met some great people on this little trip. His grandparents are really nice people, and this young man is really impressive. He doesn't really like to blow his own horn, but he knows his networking. He has some of the same traits as his grandfather. I felt it's nice to be doing something for someone for a change. Okay, you're the boss. For God's sake, don't tell him that. He knows that the company is JC Consulting, but he had no idea what the JC stands for. Okay, boss man. We'll need to find you some angel wings. She laughed out loud. Not hardly, or you'll be getting the devil's pitchfork. I laughed back. I can tell this vacation has done you a world of good. When you coming back home? I plan for being back by next Friday, so a week yesterday. I'm supposed to return this mobile house by 4 p.m. Then I'll have the weekend to wind up again to face you bunch. I was laughing at her, and as she had noticed, I was relaxed and having fun. This was something almost foreign to me for the last few years. George came over to see me the next morning. I poured him a coffee and we relaxed outside the RV, enjoying the sunshine and relative quiet. Mr. Davis. Please, Luke. Okay, Luke. You know my grandson means the world to us. I just have to be sure that what you're doing is on the up and up. I paused for a second, trying to frame it so that it didn't look like the kid was being hired as a charity or something. George, I can call you George? He nodded. I like what Jeff did here, and what he accomplished with the networking of the campground. I've been there. I know exactly how much work went into it. I didn't want to tell him, but I have a number of certifications. My first was the same as his, MCSE. Yeah, I kind of figured you might be hiding something. George continued to sip on his coffee. Well, long story short, I just got divorced. It was final about 2 weeks ago. My staff told me to get the hell out of the office and take a vacation. I didn't have plans, just started driving this house and ended up here. That first night, I talked to Jeff, and as much as he loves you and his grandmother and likes working here, he's pretty discouraged about working that hard with not much to show for it. My company is looking, or we're going to be when I got back, for a network technician. When I saw what Jeff had done here, and with how little technical support he really has, I am very impressed. Anyone with a background in networking would be if they took the time to see what he had done. So, you think he'll get the job in Kent? George still had his doubts, but was warming to me. Well, I'd prefer that this go no further than you or me, but if he shows up to see the office manager on Monday, he's almost guaranteed the job. I told him that there might be other applicants. Just a little white lie, since if he waited until I get back to work, there might have been. Let's just say, the fix is in. George smiled, then laughed. Damn, I knew it. You're not just some guy interested in computer and stuff. I grinned back, guilty. I own the JC Consulting, LLC. I talked to my office manager yesterday, and like I said, Jeff will get hired if he shows up on Monday. Of course, you don't know any of this, right? Right. Now that we have that out of the way, do you ever do any fishing? I haven't for years. I don't think I even have any gear left. Probably got rid of it over the years when it wasn't getting used. All work and no play. You know how it goes. Well, after lunch we'll get some gear together and go down and see if we can get some trout for dinner. You'll need a license. Selma can do that for you when you come up to the office. Why thanks, George. I think I'd like to go drown some worms. If we catch anything, it will be a bonus. Oh, we don't use worms. We use grasshoppers around here. There's move of them and they're easier to find. Or you can try fly fishing, but if you've never done it, it's a bit of a learning curve. With that, he finished his coffee and confirmed that I would be at the office right after lunch. George, please do as I asked. Don't tell anyone about the job or about me. I'd like to be sort of inconspicuous if you get my drift. Not a problem, Luke. What was it we didn't discuss, anyway? He laughed and headed back to the office. 1:30 saw us fishing in a creek downstream from the campground. George and I didn't talk much, just enjoyed casting into the water hoping that maybe an unwary trout would grab the bait. 4 hours later, we straggled back to the campground with 4 nice-sized rainbows. We took them to the cook shack and cleaned them. George said that Selma would look after the cooking. I could come over whenever I was ready. I left him with a large platter of fish for Selma and went back to the motorhome. After being out in the bush, cleaning fish, and all the rest of it, I decided that a shower was in order. The hot water felt good. I grabbed a couple of bottles of wine, a nice Merlot and a nice, crisp Pinot Gris, and headed over to the office. George and Selma lived upstairs, and you could get there from the office by stairs behind the desk, or the outside stairs leading up to their deck. I went up the outside and found George and Selma sitting in deck chairs, watching the birds and other wildlife. Selma was ostensibly cooking the fish, but the barbecue was doing the actual work. It smelled delicious. They were waiting for Jeff, his mother, and her friend to join us, so I poured myself a glass of Merlot and sat and chatted about nothing in particular. I noticed that Selma was giving me a look every once in a while, and since the others hadn't arrived yet, asked George, "Did you tell Selma about our little discussion this morning?" Well, yeah. I've never been able to keep anything from her, but she gave me her word. He had the grace to look very uncomfortable when confessing. I laughed. Okay, I'll let you off the hook, but no further, either of you. Selma came over and gave me a quick hug. You'll never know how much we appreciate this. Jeff has been over the moon since yesterday. Mary tells me he's packed and unpacked about 20 times today. She finally convinced him that dress casual is good enough and that he doesn't need a suit. You have that right. If someone showed up in a suit, the girls would panic and think it's either a tax audit or a lawyer with bad news. I laughed. Anyway, here they come. Enough about this, and Mum is the word. For sure, Luke. We continued chatting about nothing in particular. Mary, Jeff, and her friend Dave made the normal appreciative comments about the fish we had caught, and talk turned to fishing and where the best holes were in the creek. It was a thoroughly enjoyable evening, and I was feeling pretty relaxed as I went back to my mobile house. I wasn't looking forward to leaving here. They had become good friends, but it would be good to get back home. I was back on the road a couple of days later, winding my way toward home. I had been reluctant to leave that little campground and the people I'd met there. I was already planning a return visit, but this time in my own RV. If I was going to jump into this lifestyle, then I had to have my own rig. Food for thought as the miles, kilometers, unwound towards home. In actuality, it wasn't far if you went the direct, fast route. However, I still had 4 days left on my rental contract, and I planned on using every minute of it. I stayed at several very nice campgrounds over the next 3 nights, but none felt as good and welcoming as Riverside, where my new friends lived. I talked to Isabel on the Tuesday and found that Jeff was a happy camper and out looking for an apartment. In that, he had lots of help in Isabel and Chloe. The techs were more than welcoming and saw him for what he was, a supplement and not a replacement. He would actually enable them to concentrate fully on their own areas of expertise. I arrived back in town on Friday and took time to go to the house and drop off all my belongings there, instead of loading it into the car when I returned the motorhome, then unloading when I got home. Someone had been picking up the mail. I suspect Isabel, since I had forgotten to make any arrangements. Otherwise, it looked like I needed to do some yard work. The home was secure, but I didn't really expect anything else. Ryan and Nora hadn't been given their new keys yet, so they had no access short of breaking in. I didn't expect to see Clara at all. That ship had sailed. Isabel must have had her spies working overtime. I had just thrown in my second load of laundry when the phone buzzed. I had the ringer off. Look, hi. You're home. No, it's the astigmatism of your imagination. I laughed. Do you have spies everywhere? Not at all. I knew you had to return the motorhome at 4 o'clock, so gave you time to get home, check things out, and start your chores, she giggled. You are so predictable sometimes, you know? Okay. To what do I owe the pleasure? I just wanted to know if I should bring your mail over or wait till Monday. Well, if you want to drop it off, by all means come on over. I'm sure I can find some refreshments around here someplace. After all, I wasn't even gone 3 weeks. I'll be there shortly. She rang off and I went back to my chores. I put the lawn chairs and chaise lounges out, cleaned off the side tables, and made the deck ready for visitors. Isabel found me rummaging around in the shed a little while later. Where are you, the wanderer? She called out. Over here in the shed. I'll be right there, I answered. I finished what I was doing, closed and locked the shed, and made my way over to the deck. Something cold? Sure, but not beer. You know I don't like it. I remember. I've got a nice, chilled Pinot Gris. I don't have a chilled Chardonnay unless you want to wait. Pinot Gris is good, thanks Luke. I went in and got 2 glasses of wine, then returned with the bottle as well. Isabel handed me all the mail she'd picked up over the nearly 3 weeks I was gone. Most of it was junk, 1 from my lawyer, and 2 from Maya Fields. Ethan's was just for services rendered during the divorce. My company could pay for that. The first from Maya was finalizing the paperwork for the divorce, along with her bill, which I would happily pay. The second one from her got me thinking. She wanted to set up a complete, new computer system for her law firm, networking a satellite office that would look after non-court work such as real estate, wills, and the like. The biggest problem I had with the idea is that I wasn't sure just how much bigger I wanted my business to get. It was time to have a staff meeting and get all their input. Meanwhile, Isabel and I were sipping on the wine. She waited until I'd finished looking through all the mail, then said, "Well, boss man, you look like you survived your vacation. How was it out there on your own?" You know, Isabel, I can't remember the last time I came back feeling so relaxed and refreshed. It's almost like my batteries were being recharged or something. I can't really put words to it, but I feel a lot better than I did a few weeks ago. Guess I didn't realize how far down I was. Trust me, we knew. The only one who couldn't see it was you. We had to get you out of there for a while you could still go. We're glad it went well, even if you couldn't stay away totally. You mean Jeff? Exactly. But on the other hand, we think you done good, boss. He looks like he'll fit right in. Nice kid. No airs or pretends. What you see is what you get. Thanks for confirming my impressions of him, Isabel. He's a nice kid. I think he'll do well. Maybe my first job for him will be designing a network for Maya Fields. She wants me to price out setting up a network for her law practice, including new software and operating system. But before I commit to that, I want to talk to all of you about this. We need to find out just how big we want to become. I don't want to lose sight of our principal aim. Isabel sipped her wine and thought for a minute. What do you mean, just how big do we want to become? Do we want to be just another faceless corporate entity? I took a sip and thought for a few seconds. Well, I can't really see becoming a faceless corporate entity, but I'd hate to see us lose awareness of what got us to where we are now. Just how much expansion can we accept before it controls us instead of us controlling it? Can you see where I'm going with this? Yeah, I think it's like let's not expand and get bigger just because we can, she replied. Precisely. I really don't want to get to the point where it takes more than 7 or 8 people to run the place and do all the work. After that, it's just becoming too big. I think we need to sit down, all of us including Jeff though he's new, and hash it out and figure out where we go from where we are right now. Tell you what, Luke, it's the weekend. Let me phone around and see if Chloe and all the guys are available. Maybe we could do a barbecue or something and make it an informal get-together and planning session. I know where Jeff is staying, so he's available. Chloe and her boyfriend didn't have any plans that she knew of. I can phone the techs, but knowing them they're up to their eyeballs in some computer game. You don't mind, Isabel? I hate to put her out. She must have a life outside JC Consulting. Not at all. I think it's time we all sat down together. We haven't done that for ages. What about families? That's an idea. How about a family get-together on the company's dime? I'm sure JC has enough in the bank for that. She laughed out loud. I hope so. We haven't spent a nickel except for salaries since you've been gone. You weren't here to need new toys and equipment and your things. I had to laugh back. I was constantly reminded of some of my spending habits. Okay, I'll make the phone calls while you freshen up the wine. What day and time? She asked. How about Sunday around 1 p.m.? Everyone should be finished church if they go, and that gives us the whole afternoon. I was already planning on how many chairs and tables we'd need and what the kids could do while the adults held their meeting. Sunday at 1 o'clock it is, she replied and started calling up her speed dial list on her cell phone. I left her to it and went to find some more wine to put in the fridge. A few minutes later I called out to her, pizza or Chinese? Pizza. Why? That's what we're having for supper. I called the local pizza joint who I'd ordered from numerous times and ordered an extra large deluxe. Over pizza and wine, Isabel and I hashed out the details of the company get-together. We decided on steaks for adults and hot dogs and burgers for the kids. We'd get volunteers to grill since I didn't want to do all the work. We were pretty sure that wouldn't be a problem. I arranged for a kiddie pool and water slide for the younger kids. I'm sure they would have plenty to do. We set aside an hour for the staff meeting before everything went into high gear. I wanted everyone sober and clear-headed for that part of it since decisions would be made that would affect all of us. Isabel left in the early evening, citing a previous engagement. I finished cleaning up and got ready for doing all the outside chores the next day, then relaxed on my deck. I felt like I was missing something, but couldn't quite put a finger on it. Maybe it was just that I'd only been back off the road for a few hours. As it had been for most of my trip, it was an early night. I slept like the proverbial log. The company get-together was a blast. There were about 20 people there of mixed generations. As I had planned, the staff meeting was held in my den/office while all the others were outside having fun. We made a few concrete decisions and postponed a few more. The big one was the contract for the law office. It was decided that Jeff would spearhead the project with input from one of the techs and myself. We tentatively decided is that we would only hire one more tech, preferably with networking experience, when we absolutely needed to. Together, we could handle the current and expected workload. We adjourned to the outside and continued with the fun in G. Davis and, of course, food. I went back to work on the Monday. Within hours, it was like I hadn't been away. Over the next few months, we got busier. The contract with the law office was completed on time and on budget. I gave Jeff and the tech, Mike, bonuses for a job well done. Unbeknown to the staff, I had talked to my accountant about setting up a profit-sharing plan. Payouts would be made at the end of the calendar year and would be based on the length of time they had been with the business during the year. The only one adversely affected this year would be Jeff, but he had received a good bonus for spearheading the law office project. We didn't do too much retail business, so I decided that we could run with a skeleton staff over the Christmas holidays. I planned to work the whole time anyway, so Isabel and Chloe could decide who worked when, and the four techs could figure it out for themselves. I was certain that there wouldn't be a whole lot to do, but we had to have staff available for our customers. Needless to say, the year-end profit-sharing checks which I gave out on December 23rd were a huge surprise and gratefully received. As I told them, they were the reason we were successful, so it was only right they share in the profits. Chloe and Isabel were in tears. The four techs were choked up but managed to hold off on the tears until they were in private. The next months flew by. We were busy and were gradually building our client base. We weren't at the point where we were thinking of adding the additional tech. The four techs were able to keep up with the workload without too much overtime. We still kept our regular hours Monday to Friday and closed weekends. My biggest problem was Isabel. I was becoming more and more attracted to her. I made a point of not dating staff, ever, since it could lead to all sorts of unwelcome situations. Other than the odd dinner party, we hadn't actually socialized. I wanted our relationship to go further, but didn't want to jeopardize our friendship. I wasn't sure how to handle it, so I left it for the time being. It was obvious neither of us were going anywhere soon, so I knew where to find her if I ever figured out what course to take. Opportunity rose sooner than I expected. I received a call from Isabel's oldest daughter one Saturday when I was home vegging in front of the tube. They wanted to surprise her for her 55th birthday and needed my help. I told Sophia, her daughter, to come over and we could figure out a plan. She arrived about half an hour later. Over coffee, she talked about the party she and her sister wanted to have. Where I would come in was to keep Isabel occupied so that she wouldn't try to contact her daughters or go visit them until they were ready. I thought of various ways I could do my part, but could come up with nothing at the moment. I had time to figure something out. After discussing the party for a while, Sophia asked, "Luke, you don't date staff. Is that your rule?" Yes, Sophia. I've learned through experience that it could lead to unwanted complications. The reason I ask is, well, it's Mom. She really likes you, as in not liking the boss, but she really likes you as a person. She thinks that you aren't attracted to her. She knows she's no beauty queen. Sophia, I have nothing but respect and admiration for Isabel. Beauty is only skin deep. She has a beauty that can't be bought. Any man would be a fool to not be attracted to the real Isabel. I am, but I also consider her a friend, a good friend. I don't want to take a chance and ruin that. I think I could easily fall for her, and that scares me to death because I'm not sure that would be returned. You know, for a smart man, and you are a smart man, you can be incredibly dense. I don't really know you that well, but I do know my mom. She thinks the world of you, and not just because you hired her at a bad time in her life. You've always respected her and treated her like a person. I think she'd walk over 10 miles of broken glass if you asked her to. I can tell you right now, that ain't gonna happen. I wouldn't ask anyone to walk over 10 miles of broken glass. I sipped at my coffee for a minute then said, so you think that if I wanted to ask her out, like as on a date, she wouldn't have a problem with that? Sophia laughed. Like I said, dense. She'd love it. Our father treated her like shit. Truth be told, me and Emma were glad to see him go, and we're not sorry we've never heard from him. You treat our mom like a real person, valuable for herself and what she contributes. Ask her. She'll jump at it. I was still hesitant. Yeah, but I have this rule. Screw the rule. You said it. You can get rid of it. Anyway, there's only you, her, and Jeff that it would apply to anyway, and you said it applies mostly to you. You're the boss. Deal with it. Sophia was sounding exasperated. I sat for a few minutes, digesting this bit of information. I would really like to date and get to know Isabel better, but I'd hate to lose a valuable employee if the relationship went south. I stated as much to Sophia, who responded as only she could. God, you men, sometimes I think you left your brain in your back pocket when you took your jeans off. Look, let me tell you, my mom would be the most honest, most loving, most trusting person you could ever want. Ask her out. About time you two got a life. Sophia left a little while later. I assured her that I would find a way to keep Isabel out of their hair while they arranged the party. I didn't know what or how, but I'd figure something out. I had a week and a bit. I sat back in my recliner and thought about the conversation with Sophia. Maybe I was being too cautious. I did a few chores and puttered around for a while, putting off calling Isabel. Finally, I decided the hell with it. The worst she could do is shoot me down, though somehow I doubted that would happen. I picked up the phone and called her. Isabel, hi. It's Luke. I felt like a kid asking his soon-to-be girlfriend for a first date. I know, I've got call display, she laughed. I loved that laugh, deep and genuine. Look, what are you doing tomorrow? You have any plans? No, not really. Why? What's come up? I just felt like I need to get out of the house. How would you like to go shopping? Are you serious? You? Shopping? She really laughed this time. Well, a different sort of shopping. I want to look at RVs. I enjoyed it so much that I'm looking at buying one of my own. So what do you say? Want to go shopping? Luke, I'd love to. When? How about I pick you up before lunch? We'll do some lunch and go check out RVs. Perfect. I'll be ready at 11 o'clock. Great. See you then. Dress casual. You never know. I might get you crawling under these units to check them out. I laughed at her. I knew she liked to dress up, even for a barbecue. She giggled. Okay. No fancy dresses or anything. See you tomorrow. I ended the call. Well, the die was cast. Tomorrow could be fun or a disaster. I was leaning toward fun. Sunday, I picked Isabel up and we went for a quick lunch. She'd never ever shopped for an RV or anything so expensive for that matter. She was like a kid at Christmas. We started at the dealer where I had rented the motorhome and explained what I was looking for. I didn't need something as big as what I had rented, but I still wanted to be able to tow a car for running around in. We loaded up with brochures and got some tentative pricing, since there would be no trade. We followed the same routine at 3 more RV dealers. None put the hard sell on me, just explained the various options available. Exhausted by information overload, I drove back to my home. I guess Isabel took it for granted that that is where we would go because she didn't say anything. I poured a couple of glasses of Merlot, and we began sorting through all the brochures. We decided to sort into 3 distinct piles: maybe, possible, and no way. The maybe and possible were sorted into class A, B, C, etc., and amenities. After over 2 hours, we had narrowed it down to 3 different models. Now it would depend on the deal I was thinking we could get. I was leaning toward the dealer that I had rented from. At least they were a known entity. I decided that instead of ordering in as I usually would, I'd cook a simple dinner. We had roast stuffed chicken, veggies, and salad, and of course, accompanying wine. I didn't really do desserts at the best of times and told Isabel that. She was okay with it. She didn't really do desserts either. After dinner, I put all the used dishes into the dishwasher, and we retired to the living room. For whatever reason, we ended up side by side on the sofa, instead of me in my recliner as usual. It just felt so natural. Isabel leaned back and sighed contentedly. "Thank you, Luke. It's been a fabulous day. I've never done anything like that and enjoyed every minute of it." "You're more than welcome. I just had to get out of the house and wanted to be with someone I really cared for." "Do you mean that, Luke?" "If you're kidding, I don't think it's funny. I meant every word. You know I have this policy about not dating employees. I've come to realize that either I start asking you out, and the hell with the rules, or fire you. I don't want to fire you. I think you're a wonderful, caring, funny, and smart woman. Any man would be lucky to have you." I spoke softly, holding her hands together in both of mine as I spoke. "Damn you, Luke. I've waited for this for so long." She reached up and pulled my head down for a long, lingering kiss. We came up for air and she continued, "You had better be sure. I'm a one-man woman, and my man better be a one-woman man. We've both been there, and I never, ever want to go that route again." I held her close and whispered, "I've been such a shit. We should have been like this months ago. I wish I'd gone with my heart instead of my head." I kissed her again. "Isabel, I want you. I want to make love with you. I want to screw your brains out. I want that, and I want you to know it's not just a one-night thing. I don't play that game." She pulled me closer. "Luke, please, take me to bed. Make me your woman. I want you so much." I got up from the sofa, took her by the hand, and led her down the hall to the bedroom. The next morning I awoke early. It felt so good, so natural to have Isabel sleeping beside me, gently snoring. We'd made love until the early hours and fell asleep sated. I was aware that our relationship had changed. I hoped for the better. While I didn't want to now lose her as a lover, I didn't want to lose her as an employee and friend either. I got out of bed without disturbing her and went to put on the coffee. We both needed to survive the day since we really didn't get too much sleep last night. I let Isabel sleep while the coffee was brewing and I took a shower. Shower finished, I went into the bedroom where Isabel was just waking up. "Oh, hi. I was having this dream. I dreamt that I spent the entire night making love with a wonderful man. Then I wake up and realize that it wasn't a dream." I leaned over and gave her a kiss. "Well, lover, we have to get to work soon. I'll have to take you home so you can change." She giggled. "You mean I'm not fired? I thought you didn't date employees." I laughed back at her. "We haven't had a date yet. All we did was go shopping. Go have a shower. Fresh towels are on the counter. Coffee is ready when you are." Giggling, she got out of bed and made her way into the bathroom for a shower and her morning ablutions. We made it through the day. I'd taken Isabel home so she could change, then drove into work alone. For the first time in ages, I was at work before she was, something she was teased for by all the others. Of course, we couldn't say why, at least not yet. We were the last to leave, as usual. I was locking the door when Isabel said, "Luke, where do we go from here? I mean, I'd really like for us to be a couple, but I'm scared." "Scared? Of me?" "No, not of you, of us. I haven't been in a relationship since, well, you know, and you haven't either, unless you hit it well. I'm scared something might happen. Somehow we'll find out we can't be together. It scares me. I don't want to lose our friendship, and I don't want to lose you." I pulled her into a hug. "Well, we can only take it one day at a time. We have to get to know each other. You know, like how we live. How would we live if we were together? I don't want to lose our friendship either, and that's the part that really, really worries me. I might not be man enough for you. I might not be the person you think I am." "Luke, I don't think that's a problem. I've been with you day in and day out for over 5 years. I know the kind of man you are. Do you know what you're getting in return? I know that you're a warm, caring, funny, and smart woman who has a lot to offer any man. Any man smart enough to get to know you. I like to think, that I'm that man." I paused to let my words sink in. "Now, we're out here in the middle of the sidewalk. It's almost dinner time. What do you say to a bite to eat? You're too sensible, you know that. Let's go to my place and I'll see what's in the cupboard." She laughed and slipped out of my arms. "Deal. You lead. I'll follow." We walked over to our vehicles in the parkade and I followed her out. I stopped on the way to her apartment to pick up a bottle of wine for dinner. I got there not too long after Isabel, who was searching through the fridge for something to cook. "I'm afraid the cupboard's a bit bare, Luke. I didn't get a chance to do my grocery shopping yesterday. Some perv took me looking at RVs, then made his way with me last night." She was giggling. I love that giggle. "Oh, so now I'm a pervert who likes RVs?" I laughed at her. She laughed out loud. "Yeah, and I love it. I love you. She stopped, almost afraid of the implications of what she had said. Yes, I meant it. I do love you, she repeated, quietly, almost in a whisper. Thank God, I replied. I'm glad I'm not the only one that feels that way. I didn't know if I'd ever be able to use those words again. Yes, Isabel, I do love you. She came over and collapsed in my arms, sobbing. I just held her as her emotions poured out, soaking my shirt. I didn't care about that at all. After a while, she pulled back a bit. I'm sorry, Luke. I didn't mean to cry. I've just been so lonely and wanted you so much for so long. She wiped her eyes on my shirt, since it was already wet from her tears. I was crying for me, for you, for us. She paused. Where do we go from here? What do we do? Well, as a typical man, I'm thinking about some dinner, then we can relax and fill in the blanks. I don't know about your daughters. They may not want us to be a couple since you work for me. I smiled down at her. You men and you stomachs. Okay, how about bacon and eggs? You do the toast. Yes, we do have to fill in the blanks as you say. I think the girls will be happy for me. What about your two? Well, I think they'll be happy. I know I'm still a bit on their shit list for kicking their mother out, but realize that it was her own doing. Actually, if they don't like us being together, I don't really care about their view on it. I think we should just do what we want and let everyone else adapt to it. Together we got our dinner and ate while chatting quietly. It seemed so normal. Isabel took the dirty dishes and put them in the dishwasher. Afterward, we retired to the living room and snuggled on the sofa. You know, Luke, she started, snuggling closer if it was possible. You could have almost any woman you want. I mean, like, I'm no beauty queen. I love it that you say you love me. I just hope it's true. We're going to have to do something about this inferiority complex of yours. Beauty is only skin deep. I told you before you have a lot to offer, and I meant it. I think I've been in love with you for a long time, but didn't want to admit it. All that I went through with Clara was just too fresh, and the hurt too deep. I wasn't sure if I could ever feel this way about someone again. I kissed the top of her head that was snuggled into my chest. Isabel was quiet for quite a while, and I was beginning to think she had dozed off. It felt good just sitting here holding this wonderful woman. Look, I'm so glad you feel that way. I think I've been in love with you since the day you hired me. Nobody had ever treated the way you did, like a valued person. Ask my daughters. Their father treated me like dirt for so long I thought it was natural. I had no self-esteem left. He had ground it out of me. Oh, he never physically abused me, just mentally. Sometimes I think it would have been better if he did beat me. Then I'd have had a reason for being so miserable. She sighed contentedly. That won't happen again as long as I'm around to do something about it. Sophia told me a bit about it just after I hired you. She wanted to make sure that you were hired on merit and not in sympathy. I don't think she believed me at first. It took her and her sister a while to come around. I kissed the top of her head again. Now, I've got to get home. I didn't get a lot of sleep last night for some reason. I laughed and she giggled. I know what you mean. It's all happened so fast I almost think I'm dreaming. She unwrapped herself from my arms and got up. Okay, then dream on this. Where are we going for our first official date, and when? I've got to get going. I'll talk to you in the morning. I stood up, reluctant to leave, but I knew I had to. Look, you can stay, honest, sounding like I shouldn't go. Not if I want to get some sleep. You too. We're not teenagers anymore. We both need to rest up. I laughed as I opened the door. I'd better go before you change my mind. I left her apartment and drove back to my empty house. Well, maybe for not much longer, I thought. I was hardly in the door when the phone rang. It was my daughter, Nora. Where have you been, Dad? I've been calling for hours. Hi, how are you? How am I? Not bad. It's nice to hear from you too. I was at a friend's house having dinner. What's so urgent? Nothing. I hadn't heard from you for a while and was getting worried. She didn't sound all that worried. Maybe she was just checking up on what I was doing. Well, Nora, I do have a life, such as it is. I've met someone and like her a lot. We're getting to know each other, and maybe taking it to the next level. I purposely didn't tell her it was Isabel, since I wasn't sure how the news would be received. Well, it's about bloody time, Dad. You can't stay holed up in that big old house by yourself. Who is it? Do I know her? She actually sounded both relieved and happy. Yeah. I think if I told you who it was you'd know her, but I'm not saying for now. How come, Dad? If I guess her name, will you tell me if I'm right? No, we're not playing 20 questions here. I'll tell you who it is as soon as she says it's okay, but not before. Now, I just got in. I'll call you later. Hi to David. Okay, Dad. Have it your way. I'll be waiting for your call. I can't wait to meet your mystery woman. She laughed just before ending the call. Well, so far so good. At least she doesn't think I'm a monk or anything. I went and got my sweats on and plunked myself down in front of the tube. There wasn't much on worth watching, but I left it on for background noise if nothing else. I called Isabel. Hi, sweetie. Just calling to say goodnight. Hi, I was just thinking of you and wishing you were here. But I know we both need some rest, she giggled. My thinking exactly. I got a phone call from Nora a few minutes ago. I told her about us. Well, me and a mystery woman. Oh, and how did that go? Well, I told her I met someone that I really cared for, but wouldn't give her your name until you said it was okay. She's probably driving David crazy trying to figure out who it is. She's okay with it, though. Told me, and I quote, "It's about bloody time," unquote. Why didn't you say it was me? I'm okay with it. I wasn't sure. I didn't know how public you want us to become. For me, I don't care, but I don't want you hurt in any way. Damn you, Luke. Use your head. Of course I want everyone to know. Like you told me, if they don't like it they'll just have to adjust. She was sounding both annoyed and amused. Yeah, I vaguely recall making some comment like that. I tried, unsuccessfully, to sound apologetic, but I refused to put a notice in the paper or post it on a billboard or anything. I laughed. She giggled. I think that would be taking it a bit far. I'm going to bed, honey. Talk to you tomorrow. Love you. Love you too. Sleep tight. I ended the call and shut off the TV. I was exhausted. It had been a wild couple of days. The next day, Sophia called me. Luke, this party. We need you to deliver Mom at exactly 7 p.m. a week from Wednesday. Do you think you can arrange for that? I think so. Can I ask why exactly 7 o'clock? Only if you don't tell her. Me and Emma and our hubbies went together and bought her a new car. The thing is that it won't arrive until Tuesday and they need Wednesday to prep. The owner said he'd deliver it at 5 o'clock Wednesday night and we want time to add some stuff to it. So we need her at 7 o'clock, not before. Okay, and this is at your place? Right. Everyone but you two will be here earlier. My lips are sealed. 7 o'clock on the dot a week Wednesday. I'll figure something out. Thanks, Luke. I knew I could count on you. She ended the call and I sat back wondering how on earth I'd put one past Isabel. It would take a bit of planning. The rest of the week flew by. We didn't really get much of a chance to get together. She had decided for our first official date that we would go to dinner then attend a jazz concert. I'm more of a R&B and oldies rock and roll person, but jazz is okay. And we would be together. I made arrangements with the RV dealer that we had agreed on to have the unit ready by Sunday. He was more than happy to accommodate us. I picked up Isabel early Saturday evening. We had an early dinner date since we didn't want to miss any of the concert. When she opened the door to her apartment I teased, "Sorry to disturb you. I thought Isabel lived here." She laughed and punched my arm. "You're being silly. Come in. I'll just be a minute." "No, I'm serious. I didn't recognize you without your working clothes on." I laughed. To my eyes she looked fabulous. She gathered her things together, and we walked out to my car. "You look great," I said, meaning every word of it. "Well, thank you. You clean up pretty good, too. I hope it's a great evening." I opened the door for her to get in and walked around to the driver's side. As soon as I was settled, she moved over to sit in the middle of the seat, pressing her side up against me. It was hard, but I managed to get us to the restaurant without killing anyone. Actually, it was more than a restaurant. It was a dining room with all the usual accoutrements. A uniformed matron showed us to our table. The wine steward followed shortly afterward. We must have had at least 5 different people serving our table. I ordered a nice bottle of wine, remembering that Isabel preferred white. The server asked if we had questions. It all looked so good on the menu it was a hard choice. I asked, "Well, it all looks perfectly delicious. Do you have anything you personally recommend?" "Of course, sir. My name is Frederick. My personal favorite is the pork medallions and wine sauce. If you wish beef, then of course you can't go wrong with the filet mignon. If you wish, I'll give you a few moments." I thanked him, and he moved off to another table. "Well, Isabel, what do you think? It all looks perfectly wonderful. I'm going to go with the medallions." "I agree. It all looks so good. You know, I've never had a filet mignon. I'm going with that." I waved to Frederick, who came over as soon as he was able. "Frederick, we're going to go with your suggestions. The lady will have the 6-ounce filet, medium well, and I'll have the pork medallions." "Very good choices, madam, sir. I'll place your order immediately." "Thank you, Frederick. There is no hurry. We want to thoroughly enjoy the experience. And so you shall. I will make sure of it." The meal lived up to and exceeded our expectations. True to his word, Frederick made sure that we were well looked after. His assistants always seemed to appear at the right time. And of course he checked to make sure everything was going well. I ensured a generous tip as we left for the concert. The concert was the icing on the cake for the evening. The band, well, I guess they were an ensemble, Played quite a few of the old standards as well as a lot of their new material that had just been released to the market. I made sure to buy a couple of their CDs as we left. The music would be a good reminder of our first official date. I didn't want the evening to end. Apparently neither did Isabel. She suggested we go to a small nightclub not too far from where she lived. We could have a quiet drink and maybe dance a bit. I was all for it. The nightclub wasn't all that busy for a Saturday, at least what I expected. Then I realized that it might be the music. They were playing big band era music like Goodman, Miller, etc. I later learned that Saturday wasn't their big night. Surprisingly, it was Wednesday. Something to do with the age of their usual clientele, I suspected. At least we could hear ourselves talk, and the music was great to dance to. It was the perfect end to a great evening. Isabel made it quite evident that she was coming to my house for the night and had me stop at her apartment so she could pick up a small overnight bag she had already packed. I pulled into my garage, and we went into the house. Isabel took her bag into the bedroom and came back a few minutes later in something more comfortable, as she put it, a nice pink nightgown and matching housecoat. I had to laugh at her fuzzy slippers. She sat down on the sofa and I handed her a glass of Chardonnay I had chilling in the fridge. I think I'm overdressed. I'll just slip into something more comfortable too. I quickly changed and joined her on the sofa. Isabel, sweetheart. The evening. It went so well it feels almost like it's some kind of dream. I leaned over and gave her a soft kiss. I agree. I've never had a night like it, ever. It is, more than I ever expected. Look, thank you. Thank you so much. You make me feel so special. She cuddled closer, and I put my arm around her shoulders. You were special. I had a great evening with a great person. I want you to know that. Remember that? She pulled my head down and gave me a long, lingering kiss. Is this what love feels like? She asked. I've never felt this way with anyone. I don't know, but it will do until the real thing comes along, as the song says. Let's go to bed. I want to make long, passionate love with you, all night long. We don't have to get up till noon, at the earliest. Why noon? She moaned into my mouth. We have to go pick up the new motorhome tomorrow. Somebody has to drive the car back home. She sat upright. Look, did you really? Which one? Tomorrow. I'll show you tomorrow. I gave her a kiss and pulled her to her feet. Arms around each other, we walked down the hall to the bedroom. I woke up sometime around 10:30 to the delicious smell of fresh coffee. Isabel wasn't in bed with me, so it was evident that she had put the coffee on. I heard voices in the kitchen and wondered who on earth would be visiting Sunday morning. I did my usual morning bathroom things, put on a robe and headed to the kitchen. Nora and David were sitting at the table with Isabel. I guess she just couldn't wait to find out who the mystery woman was. Isabel got up from the table and gave me a nice good morning kiss before getting me a coffee. Nora was smiling, as was David. Well, Dad, I guess we know who the mystery woman is. Good for you both. Just had to spy on the old man, I laughed. Yes, the mystery woman is Isabel, as you well know already. What are you two doing barging in here in middle of a Sunday morning? Actually, we stopped by to borrow one of your tools. I don't have my keys yet, so we rang the bell. Guess you slept through that part, huh, Dad? She giggled. Anyway, Isabel answered the door. She put the coffee on, and we've been sitting here waiting for you to get up. We chatted over coffee. After a while, Isabel left to get dressed. She came back into the kitchen, and she and Nora got busy making brunch. It seemed so natural that it was almost scary. I almost had to pinch myself to make sure it was really happening. While they got brunch together, I had a quick shower and got dressed. David wanted to borrow my scroll saw for a small project he was working on. David, I said, you're my son-in-law. You're welcome to anything I have that you need. All I ask is that anything you borrow gets returned. Just leave a note on the table if you came to borrow something when I'm not here. I handed him a full set of keys to the house. These are for you and Nora. Feel free to use them. Thanks, Dad. This will mean a lot to Nora. She feels sort of locked out of your life ever since, well, you know, Clara. He patted me on the shoulder, then shook my hand. Come on, let's load this up and go have brunch. We loaded the saw and its attachments into his car and headed in for a delicious brunch. We finished and Isabel and I loaded the dishwasher. Now that you guys have keys, you can let yourselves out. Isabel and I have an errand to run. Nora looked at Isabel. On a Sunday? Yeah, so he says. Actually, we're picking up a motorhome. He needs somebody to drive the car back here and I got elected. She laughed. I'm really looking forward to it. We went shopping last week and must have picked up 2 trees worth of brochures. I didn't realize there was so much involved in RVs. Nora looked over at me. A motorhome, Dad? What kind? How big? You, along with Isabel, will just have to wait. You guys a bit longer. If you want to hang out here, we should be back in an hour or so. Then you can come and drool, I laughed as Isabel and I went into the garage and got into the car to drive to the RV dealer. For the life of me, I can't understand why they need an hour's worth of paperwork to complete a simple purchase. Sure, it was a larger purchase than usual given the price of the thing, but there was no financing or any of that to deal with. Thankfully, the sales guy didn't try any upselling. That might have aggravated me more than I already was with all the paperwork. Finally, we finished and did our orientation. I was sure it would take me quite a while before I could operate everything without referring to a manual. I felt like I was learning how to fly an airplane. Since they were a full-service dealership, I was able to have license plates put on and get the thing registered all at the same time. I'd already arranged for BCA coverage, since they insured almost everything else I owned. Finally, we were able to leave the dealership and get back to the house. I had no problem. This one was a bit smaller than the one I had rented, and it didn't have the tow on it yet. Isabel had approved of my choice. It was one of the top ones on her probable list. To my surprise, Nora and David were still there, waiting for us. They oohed and awed over the new addition. David was especially impressed with some of the advanced technology. They didn't know it. Well, nobody did, but I was going to make it available for all my staff and families. All they would have to do is buy fuel. It was a large expenditure, and I couldn't see it sitting idle in storage for months at a time. After duly appreciating the new toy, Nora and David left us to our own devices. Isabel took more time going through it now, checking cupboards, closets, and the like. I was happy to sit in the cockpit, yes, they call it a cockpit, and read through some of the manuals. Then I got an idea. A test drive. Wednesday. It would be perfect. I'd get Isabel to come over after work, and Wednesday we'd do a test drive and take it over to show Sophia and all the rest of them. I finally got Isabel out of the thing and drove it around back. I had a spot in the backyard I could park it temporarily. We settled on the back patio with a glass of wine. As I said before, it felt so natural sitting with her. I realized that I had been missing this type of companionship for quite some time, even before my divorce. Isabel began giggling. I asked her what that was all about, and she giggled louder. Luke, just a piss of your ex, we should drive the motorhome down to where she's living now. God, you're evil. Why would you want to do that? I didn't think you were that kind of vindictive person, I answered. I'm not, really. But I'd love to see the look on her face when she saw what she had lost out on just for a sex and smooth talk. Honestly, I'm glad I'm with you and she's not, but I'd like to rub her face in it. She was an idiot for letting you go, she giggled, then became quiet. I'm so glad she was an idiot. Well, that ship sailed a long time ago. But look at it this way. If you guys at the store hadn't nagged me about taking a holiday after the divorce was final, this, and we, may not have happened. I still look back and think of all those wasted years and realize that, if nothing else, we brought a couple of great kids into the world. She was a good mother. I have to give her that. And you, with your two. You must have had the patience of a saint dealing with your ex and bringing up two very nice young women. Thank you, Luke. I think you, of all the men I know, can relate to just how hard it was. Growing up without love could be tough. At least my girls had that from me. I think their father just saw them as an unneeded and unwanted distraction. I heard her sigh contentedly. It was as if we were already married, yet we hadn't discussed any of that yet. Isabel, have you talked to your girls about us? I was curious to hear what their reaction might be. No, I'm supposed to see Sophia sometime this week. Emma too if I can swing it. I see that Nora is okay with us. What will Ryan think? He'll be fine. Actually, I was more worried about Nora since she and I never saw eye to eye very much when they were growing up. The two of them thought their mother walked on water. I just brought home the money. Ryan, to his credit, started to see the light when he talked to his mother after I'd booted her out and changed the locks. I guess some of her answers to his questions didn't sound right. He was the first one to admit that what I had found out was true. It took Nora a bit longer. So, I think Ryan will be fine. She smiled over at me in agreement. I guess she was thinking along those lines. I'm pretty sure her daughters will be more than happy for her. For us? Sweetheart, what do you say to an early dinner? I can probably find something to burn on the barbecue, or we can keep it simple and have salad with a side dish of some kind. It's been a while since brunch, and I'd like to make an early night of it tonight. Do you mean early as in sleep? She teased. Actually, I was thinking along the same lines. As wonderful as last night was, I do need to get some sleep if I'm going to function at all tomorrow. We settled on a salad, some cold grilled chicken, and, of course, a nice Chardonnay. After dinner, though I would have gladly taken her to bed, I ended up taking her back to her apartment. The week flew by. I hardly spent any time in the office. Jeff and the techs were going flat out, and even Chloe seemed busier than usual. I had made one unscheduled call to a jeweler that I had dealt with and known for years. Wednesday afternoon came along. Finally, I could relax after these few hectic days. Isabel poked her head in the door of my office. Wow, that's quite a week so far. What are we doing for dinner? Tell you what, let's just go to the diner and have a quick supper and take the motor home for a test drive. I've been waiting all week to do that. It will be a perfect way to wind down. That sounds great. Why don't you pick me up at my apartment in about 30 minutes? It'll give me a chance to change, then we can go to your place and pick up Maxine and do a test drive. Maxine? I asked. This was a new one. Yes, I named your motorhome Maxine. She'll be smart, clever, and funny just like the cartoons. She laughed. I groaned. What is with you women naming everything? I thought motorhome pretty much had it covered. Spoil sport, Isabel laughed as she left to go home and change. I took a quick walk through the store to make sure everything was secure, then headed for home. Isabel was waiting on the sidewalk in front of her apartment block when I arrived. That was quick, I remarked, not even 20 minutes. Isabel was dressed in a casual blouse and casual slacks. She carried only her purse and a light sweater. 15. I've been waiting for 5 minutes, she laughed. Let's get going. This woman needs to be fed. I headed toward my place and parked the car in the garage. I'll just be a couple of minutes. Make yourself at home, I told Isabel, hoping that at some time in the future it would be permanent. 10 minutes later, we were climbing into Maxine and heading toward town. We headed to a small diner that we both knew from previous experience served great food. We were seated, and the nice young server took our order. We relaxed over coffee, since I was driving, and just chatted, happy in each other's company. Dinner was over about an hour later. I still had to kill an hour before arriving at Sophia's place. We climbed into the motorhome and just started driving around town, getting used to the handling of a fairly large motorhome instead of a car. Isabel was having a blast. She couldn't believe how much she could see from the captain's chair in the cockpit. I kept my eye on the clock as we drove around, planning on ending up in front of Sophia's at 7 o'clock without seeming to have planned it. At 6:59, I parked at the curb opposite Sophia's place. What do you think? Will Sophia and her better half want to take a gander at Maxine? Did you know we were going here? She asked, somewhat suspicious. Not at all, until I realized that they lived somewhere up here, and I figured we could get a coffee out of them, at least. I tried to sound convincing, but don't know if I succeeded. Uh-huh, replied Isabel. I'm sure she wasn't convinced but had no evidence to the contrary. She just stepped out of the motorhome when the front door of Sophia's house opened and Sophia, Emma, their husbands and assorted grandkids came running out screaming, surprise. She took a second to look back and give me a dirty look, then was swept up in all the hugs and wishes from her family. I followed her out of the motorhome and locked it up. Sophia and Emma gave me welcoming hugs and introduced their husbands, Mike and Dave. The kids were still ganging up on Grandma. We adults were more or less being ignored, so we headed into the house. Sophia had everything set up on the deck. We were told to help ourselves to refreshments. The new car they had purchased for Isabel was sitting in the middle of the lawn with a sign that read Happy Birthday Grandma and a huge red bell fastened on top of the roof. We stood around, sipping on a beverage, waiting for the kids to drag Grandma through the house to her birthday surprise. We could hear them before seeing them. The kids were almost beside themselves with excitement. The look on Isabel's face when she saw the car was priceless. It went from wonder to shock to amazement in seconds, and then she began to cry. She let herself be pulled down to see her new wheels by the grandkids, who were still giddy with excitement. A beautiful magenta Toyota Avalon. Of course it wasn't licensed yet, but she could transfer the plates off her old car. I can't believe this, Isabel was crying as she walked slowly around the car. We had all moved down to help her enjoy the moment. You, all of you, shouldn't have done this. It's far too much, too much. Grandma, you have to sit in it. See, it's open, called her oldest grandson, all of 7 years old, as he opened the driver's door. Isabel dutifully sat in the driver's seat and looked around her new ride. Cards and well wishes covered almost every surface. I can't believe this, it's too much, she continued to cry. She got out of the car and began delivering hugs to everyone. Saving me for last, you bugger. You knew, didn't you? Well, sort of. I was told to deliver you to the house at 7 p.m. precisely. I think we might have been a minute early. I laughed. Blame Sophia. She set it all up. We adjourned to the deck where Isabel cut the cake while Sophia and Emma added ice cream and handed plates to all of us. Except for me, it was all family. Some friends and neighbors would be arriving a bit later. It was going to be a huge 55th birthday party for a wonderful woman. The friends and neighbors showed up and more cake and ice cream were served. Many had brought their own chairs, so everyone had somewhere to sit. Except for my staff, who were all present. Most of the people didn't know me. Oh, they knew about me being Isabel's employer, but had never met me. I enjoyed getting to know them and be known by them. About an hour after everyone had arrived and had their cake, I stood up. Ladies and gentlemen, I know that this is Isabel's birthday party. I have a few things I'd like to say, but before that, let's give Sophia and Emma a big hand for arranging this surprise. A loud, long round of applause rang out, and then I continued. This bit is for all the staff. You've all seen that huge bus out there. Well, that's my new toy. The staff all know about my little adventure after my divorce. I had so much enjoyment out of traveling with the rented RV that I decided to buy one of my own. There was a murmur of appreciation. When I bought this, I knew I wouldn't be using it every day, all year. So my announcement is that all staff and their families can use it for their vacation if they so choose. Naturally, I get first dibs, but after that, everyone can book it for their own vacations. I haven't worked out the details. We'll get together on that when things sort of get back to normal. Another murmur of appreciation was followed by applause. Now, I know that you all think you know Isabel quite well. I'm here to tell you that you might be a bit mistaken. When I first hired her, a couple of lifetimes ago, she wouldn't say boo to a goose. Oh, she was and is very good at her job then, but she would hardly talk to anyone, even me. Gradually, she got more comfortable and even came to realize that the techs in back weren't really some kind of weird species. This got a laugh, especially from the 4 techs. Please bear with me. I'll get to the point soon. Now we have the techs, Chloe, and even me living in fear of the wrath of Isabel. More laughter. That being said, I'm happy to say she has become an integral and valued member of our team. But, I paused for effect, all good things come to an end. Everyone was almost holding their breath. None of them knew what was coming. Isabel, I'm afraid that for your birthday, I'm going to have to fire you. There was a collective gasp that quickly turned into a lot of yelling, chiefly at me. I waved my arms to quiet everyone, and gradually the uproar stopped. You see, my dear, loving Isabel, I can't have my wife working for me, now, can I? A totally stunned silence followed. It seemed that nobody either believed what I said, or they didn't understand it. I knelt down in front of Isabel and pulled the small black box from my pocket. Isabel, would you do the honor of becoming my wife? Well, as I imagined, pandemonium ensued. Isabel wasn't able to speak, just nodded her head and fell into my arms. Everyone was crying. Well, at least the adults were. The kids didn't really understand what was going on until Sophia explained that I would soon be their new grandpa. Things gradually settled down, and we were able to enjoy the remainder of the evening. Of course, all of the women wanted to ogle the ring I had given Isabel, and the men wanted to shake my hand. Sophia tried to pretend that she was upset with me for having upstaged her birthday surprise. It was, of course, all in jest. She and Emma were thrilled for their mom. Eventually, we were able to leave. Tomorrow was a work day, though I told Isabel to take the day off and get her new car all set up and registered and insured. I told her that if there were any additional costs to have the BCA call me. On the way back to her apartment, she was very subdued, almost as if reality was just now starting to sink in. Luke, she started. I'm really in shock. The last thing I expected was for you to propose. That in the car, I don't think I'll get over it. Isabel, I think I've loved you for years. I just didn't know it because of what happened with my ex. I was gun-shy, and it took my trip in the Rockies to see what was in front of my face. I'm just relieved you at least nodded yes, even if you didn't say it. I laughed. No, I didn't say it. Did I? Luke, officially, yes, 1,000 times yes. I'll marry you. If these seats were closer together, you might have a difficult time driving, she giggled. Look, I don't want to sleep in that apartment all by myself. Let me get some things together, and I'll come back to your place. I thought I'd tease her a bit. Well, you can't come back to my place. Her face fell, not really understanding what I was saying. Sweetheart, it's our place, not just mine. I know we're not married yet, but that's just a formality. You can move your stuff whenever you want. You can sublease the apartment, or buy out the remainder of the lease. It's up to you. Damn you, Luke. You're gonna tease me to death one of these days, she laughed. Wait here while I pack a bag. We can get the rest of it some other time. She was back in the motorhome in 15 minutes, pulling a fair-sized bag behind her. I thought I could start filling up my side of the closet, she giggled. Whatever you want, sweetheart. Let's go home. I started up the motorhome and drove towards the house. Luke, did I ever tell you your wife, ex-wife, was an idiot? I think you mentioned it once. I hope that's not what you're thinking you are. I knew it wasn't, and she had told me that once before. Of course not. I think I'm the luckiest woman on the planet right now. It's like a dream I don't want to wake up from. She sighed contentedly and was quiet the remainder of the drive to the house. I drove into the backyard where we were temporarily parking Maxine. After parking the beast and making sure everything was secure, I carried Isabel's suitcase to the house. She waited on the deck while I went around to the front so I could open the patio doors from inside. I found her on a chaise lounge, curled up in a ball and crying. "Isabel, sweetheart, what's the matter? Are you okay?" I couldn't keep the worry from my voice. Through her sobs she said, "Yes, I'm fine. It's just everything that happened tonight. It's a bit overwhelming. I've never gone through anything like this before. It's almost more than I can handle." I just sat on the chaise lounge and held her, not saying a word. She let me know when she had settled down. It took a while. Eventually she said, "You have to phone Nora and Ryan?" Or did they know about all this? "No, sweetheart, the only one that knew was me, at least about the proposal. Sophia told me about the car, but I didn't tell anyone about proposing to you. I hope I don't have to go through this again," she said. She had finally stopped the tears, but made no attempt to wipe them off her face. "Why, do you want me to propose at another birthday party?" I teased. "God, you're such a brat." She punched my arm. "I must be a mess. I've got to go clean up. You call your kids and let them know. I want, no need, a nice cold glass of Chardonnay. Go. I'll bring your bag in. Your wine will be out here when you're ready." I carried the bag into the master bedroom, our bedroom, and went to pour the wine. I picked up the phone on the way out to the patio and hit Nora's speed dial number. We chatted for a while. She was happy, for me and Isabel, and yes, she and David would definitely be there for the wedding, whenever it was. I handed the phone to Isabel, and she and Nora talked for a while. Finally, that call ended, and I called Ryan. He was surprised at first, then happy for both of us. Yes, he and his family would certainly be down for the wedding, and maybe come down soon so the kids could meet their new grandma. We decided that we'd get married at the house. The backyard was large enough to hold quite a few people, and there would be room for the kids to run around. She hadn't had a church wedding, so we arranged for the minister of a local church to officiate. We set the date for 3 months from the day I proposed. Our honeymoon would be a trip in Maxine. I especially wanted to go back to Riverside. For that matter, I'd be happy to spend the whole honeymoon there and just take day trips to sightsee. Once Isabel, Sophia, Emma, and Nora started planning, I just stayed out of the way and answered, "Yes, dear," whenever I was asked. Thankfully, it wasn't often. I thought I might need to find a couple of large contracts to pay for this, but I wanted Isabel to have her dream wedding. Isabel decided that Sophia would be the matron of honor. Emma and Nora would be bridesmaids. I decided that Ryan would be my best man. Jeff and an old friend, who was one of my first customers, would be groomsmen. It was hard to get any work done with all the wedding planning going on. Chloe was able to pick up the slack for Isabel, which was a blessing. Since my input to the wedding was mostly monetary, the techs and I were able to keep up to the necessary work. We decided on putting new contracts on hiatus until Isabel and I got back from our honeymoon. I felt that if we couldn't give 110%, then it wasn't worth the effort. We had enough to keep us going, in any case. The guest list kept growing. Many of our clients wanted to attend, as well as many of Isabel's friends. Since most of my friends were also clients, that worked out well. As it stood, there would be nearly 100 people attending the wedding. The night before the wedding, I was banished from the house. I stayed at Sophia's. The women had taken over the house totally, and we men would just have to deal with it. My stomach was doing backflips with a double twist as I waited at the altar for Isabel. The planners had set up the altar down in one shaded corner of the lawn. Chairs were set up for all the guests, and Isabel and her attendants would walk on a pathway of flowers from the patio down to the altar. It was an elegant setting. They had even arranged for an organ to be played, no recorded music, from the patio. As the wedding march began, the attendants, male and female, walked down the aisle and took their places. Isabel looked stunning in a pale blue gown as she walked slowly down the aisle and stopped by my side. I guess the ceremony went okay. I was sort of on autopilot and spoke when prompted, placed the wedding ring on her finger when told to, and of course kissed the bride. The caterers did a marvelous job. For simplicity, we had them set up a buffet in the house. Tables and chairs were set up outside. There was champagne on each table, as well as several bottles of the Silver Sage Chardonnay that Isabel liked so much. We had set it up so that dancing would take place on the patio. How they managed to book the band on such short notice I never did discover. It must have been someone knowing someone, etc. All in all, it was a great day. Exhausted, Isabel and I made our escape in her new Avalon to a nearby resort where I had booked the honeymoon suite. We learned the next day that the party lasted until well past midnight. We changed into something more comfortable, a phrase that had become a running joke between us, and were content to relax in each other's arms. Eventually, we made it to bed and were quickly fast asleep, snuggled together. The next morning, we returned to the house after a couple of hours of lovemaking followed by a nap. The backyard looked like a war zone, and the caterers and their crew were just starting to clean up. We pitched in to help, and were soon joined by assorted other family members as they straggled in from their various accommodations. Once they had finished and all the chairs and tables loaded and taken away, Isabel and I went and got Maxine ready for our trip. I had invited George and Selma to the wedding without really expecting they could make it. With the campground open, it was hard for them to get away, but they did appreciate the gesture. I did get them to reserve a site for us, preferably near the main building so it would be easier to visit. We managed to get out of there by early afternoon. Our plan was to be in Riverside the next day, so our first day's journey would be fairly short. We had Isabel's Avalon attached as our tow. It made much more sense than towing my larger car around. We got to the first campground I had stayed in on my solo trip that seemed so long ago. We didn't bother unhooking the tow, just got parked for the night and made a light dinner. I couldn't figure out why fellow campers were stopping to congratulate us. They didn't know us from Adam and had no reason to believe we were newlyweds. That is until I saw the sign that the kids had managed to affix to Maxine after we had the tow hooked up. The sign read, and we still have it, in big bold letters, young newlyweds at 29 plus. We decided to leave it on until the next morning. Early the next afternoon, we pulled into Riverside. We were greeted and treated like royalty. Jeff had phoned the night before and told his grandparents about the wedding and my offer to family and staff for the use of Maxine. We decided to stay there for at least a week, using it as our base to travel around and explore. George wouldn't allow us to pay, telling Isabel it was their wedding gift to us. I made it quite plain, however, that if we did decide to stay the extra week, we would be paying for it. No argument. We did end up staying there for the entire 2 weeks. We could travel further afield another time. We had a great time exploring the area, hanging out and visiting with George and Selma, and acting like newlyweds. Jeff's mother and her friend Dave came over a few times, and we had a great visit. We found a curio shop in a small town nearby that sold magnetic jewelry and bought a bunch of bracelets and necklaces for our assorted grandkids. For the most part, we just enjoyed each other's company and making love for hours whenever the urge took us. The 2 weeks was up before we knew it, and it was back to Kent, back to work, and back to start our new lives. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.